Hello, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite show on the internet, Raw Law Unfiltered, with your guest host, Chandler Remington. Good morning. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late this morning. I have just gotten word from Larry that the courtroom is having some Wi-Fi problems this morning. There are so many media members in the court that apparently all of the laptops trying to connect at one time is creating this huge system crash. So he was finally able to tweet. He's in the courtroom, and you're going to have me. I'm going to be taking you through this journey of opening statements this morning. We are going to have a great day together, and I'm really excited to be doing this. This is going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to add in the court feed here. And as you can see, basically nothing is happening. We have the camera pointed at the seal, as is normal. I believe that Judge Summers is going to be probably starting in about 15 minutes, but I really appreciate everybody hanging in there, and welcome. And for those of you asking, thank you so much. I am feeling better. I was feeling a little bit under the weather yesterday, but I am much better today, and I'm just happy to be joining you all for this stream. So this is going to be awesome. So while we wait, Larry has just tweeted that Judge Summer has finally walked in. He says, let's rock and roll. So it looks like we are about to start. I don't know about you guys. I'm really looking forward to opening statements. This would be fascinating. Yesterday was a little bit low key as far as voir dire. There were a couple of funny moments where the judge kind of, she miscounted a little bit. She picked the jury. She chose 16 people, and then she referred to them as the 14 jurors. So we got clarification from somebody in the courtroom that no, the judge is just tired. There are really 14 people. And look, here we are. We are in session. We are about to start. Mr. Baldwin. He looks very tense. Justice Fanatic says he looks crabby. I tend to agree. He's seated with his lawyer to his left. There's Mr. Spiro, who has made a lot of compelling arguments for motions in limine. And Raw 815 says, I must say all the coverage you and Larry have done on these trials has been so amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a really fun experience to come here and to be a part of this trial. It's been fascinating just seeing the way that the court system works. As a prospective law student, I'm really looking forward to becoming an attorney one day, and it's fascinating seeing everything, especially with the motions. That was way more interesting than I thought it was going to be. I really enjoyed that experience. Dana is noticing that Stephen Baldwin is sitting behind Alec. Stephen has been here. He was here yesterday. He's shown up for moral support, and I'm sure that Hilaria is in the courtroom as well. And Melanie says, good to see you, Chandler. Glad you're feeling better. Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate that. Well, yeah, you can't be sick on opening statements day. That's not allowed. I think I see Larry in the court. Let me know if you spot him. I'm scanning the gallery. Now, this is a different courtroom than the one that we were in for pretrial motions. They moved everything down, I believe, to the second floor. And I see a lot of the media members there. This should be good. I'm not sure if everybody saw this yesterday, but while we're waiting to get started, one of the interesting things that Anjanette Levy had tweeted in the morning, which I was not aware of until the day's close, was that Hilaria Baldwin had shown up with her and Alec's baby. They have 8 kids together, 2 of whom are infants, and she brought the youngest baby with her to, I don't know exactly do what. And I don't think that that's going to work as a sympathy ploy on the jury, if that's what she's going for. But Larry and I both agree that using your children as props, it's just not a good look. So Mindful Maya, Larry in suit behind man in gray shirt. Larry's wearing a yellow tie this morning. So look out for a yellow tie. Alabama Rose says that's definitely to show him as a family man. I agree. I just don't think that it's going to have the effect that they want. And by the way, so since phones are not allowed in the courtroom, they have a very strict policy on that. You are not allowed phones. You cannot take pictures. You cannot take videos. That means that Larry will be tweeting from his laptop, and I will be keeping an eye on Larry's tweets. I will be sharing what he's saying in the courtroom as he is tweeting it. So just so you know, you will you'll get to hear from him through me. And good morning. Good morning to everybody who is just now joining us. Thank you so much for coming to our channel. Please remember to like this video. Please subscribe. We're going to be doing a morning session. We're going to break for lunch, and then we'll have our afternoon session. And then once everything is done for the day, we'll do a recap. Now we have a nice little close-up of Stephen Baldwin there. Yes, Larry is growing out his hair. I really like the look. I think it's very handsome. He had a friend suggest it to him, and ever since then. Thanks, Josh. Now I'm curious to know, so as far as opening statements are concerned, what are you all interested in hearing from the defense? Because I don't know how our audience feels about Mr. Baldwin. I know that there are a lot of people who feel that he should be held responsible. There are some other people who think Hannah Gutierrez is the only person responsible for the death of Helena Hutchins. So I'd like to hear from you all. Are you interested in the defense's arguments? Do you think that the defense could possibly make an argument that could sway you towards Alec's side? Because even though I believe in due process, I see a lot of culpability here. And I feel like he is very responsible and should be held accountable. So what do you guys think? Do you think that Mr. Baldwin should be convicted of this crime just, from the get-go before you hear opening statements? And what do you want to hear from the defense? Mad Dog Prosh says, defense, he's not responsible for loading the gun. Prosecution, he pointed the gun and pulled the trigger. Mal W says, I think he's guilty. It will take some swaying from that. I agree. And I don't really like to judge people guilty before I hear the case. Obviously, the case has to be argued. I do think that his defense attorneys are going to put on a very vigorous and rigorous defense for their client. And I noticed that during the motions. I mean, honestly, I learned a lot more from the pretrial motions than I thought that I would. There were a number of arguments that were allowed in. They discussed certain witnesses, and I got kind of a sneak peek into where the state's going to be coming from and where the defense is going to be coming from. Trudy says, I would like to know, why do they have real guns on a set where they have all of these machines that make the sounds of a gun? Why not just have the prop? That's a good question, Trudy. I mean, I can see where they would want things to look authentic. And as you all know, I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up in the film industry, in and around it. I had a lot of friends who were actors, all of whom said that essentially, even though, you can use a real weapon, yes, but it should not have any live rounds in it, of course. That's kind of a big problem. I think that replica weapons are much more intelligent to use. You can certainly make a replica weapon that looks very, very similar to the real thing. And I don't understand why they didn't do that in this case. That's a very good question. B-Rad says, never point a pew-pew at anyone, regardless if it's loaded or not. That's fascinating that you say that. Now, I don't know if you guys caught yesterday. So we weren't able to stream yesterday because yesterday was voir dire, but there were numerous jurors who brought up the fact that they were personally raised to believe and to understand about gun safety, that you always assume that a weapon is loaded. Always act as though a gun is loaded when you are handling one. B-Rad says, if you point a pew-pew at anyone, unless you are going to use it, I have my LTC and it goes through all that information. Yeah, that's the thing. I think that these jurors are going to be very savvy. I think that, so we know the jury composition now, it's 11 women and 5 men. And so as Larry pointed out yesterday, which I agree with, there are going to be perhaps, I think that the gender composition contributes to, maybe some of the women on the jury don't know as much about the guns as, you know, some of the male members of the jury. That might be a little bit sexist, but it's generally accurate. Unless you guys disagree, I mean, please feel free. Chandler, can you move you to the top left screen? Chat comments covers you. Perhaps. I will work that out. I think we're good for now. T for 2 says, what? No ceiling fan? Are you missing Larry's OnlyFan? That was, I mean, in the Boston court, I think we had a lot of fan action. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get as much of that here because I don't remember there being ceiling fans in the courtroom. At least not in the one we sat in yesterday. They're going to close up on other things, the New Mexico State seal. It's going to be just as boring, but a little bit different. JD says, my wife knows more about the guns and reloading than me. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes there are, you know, women who are very gun savvy, who have been taught from a very young age. I think it depends on your culture and what you grew up around. All I know is that I don't know anything about guns, and I know that Mr. Baldwin acted improperly. Some of the fascinating things that came up during motions in limine included, sorry, very squeaky chair, included that there are videos of Mr. Baldwin that are going to be presented as part of the evidence, in which he is, before this incident, he's using the same weapon, he's playing with it, he is, you know, pointing it at things, using it as a pointer, acting very recklessly and very wantonly with willful disregard for the safety of other people. And that's something that the defense tried to, you know, kind of, they tried to exclude, and the state won on those particular motions. The judge is going to allow that in. We have a super chat from B-Rad. Glad to see you back in the hot seat. Thank you. I was pleasantly surprised. You know, I love doing these streams when Larry's in court. It's a really fun thing for me to do and for us to kind of go back and forth a little bit. I really enjoy, and I'm so glad that that you guys like me hosting and, you know, or guest hosting rather. I really love streaming. It's a lot of fun, and I love being a part of the action, even if I'm not in the courtroom. Let's see. Let me see if there's sound. It looks like the jury's coming in. Dancing Dee Dee asks, how long is this case likely to last? It is going to last for 8 days. And Melanie says, Chandler, you always do a fantastic job. Thank you, Melanie. I sincerely appreciate that.
The matter I'm calling is
Sound.
D101CR 2024-13, State of New Mexico versus Alexander Ray Baldwin. All right, jury, what are you doing? Oh, I have it on. So I have already sworn you in, if you'll recall, yesterday. Okay. And now I'm going to explain some trial procedure. First of all, I want you to know this trial is being filmed, but you are not being filmed, and you will not be filmed at all throughout within the courtroom, okay? All right. So I'm going to, this is a criminal case, as you know. I'm going to reread the grand jury indictment. It's very formal, so we'll go with that. Count 1, involuntary manslaughter, negligent use of a firearm, in that on or about October 21, 2021, in Santa Fe County, New Mexico, State of New Mexico, at Bonanza Creek Ranch, located at 545 Bonanza Creek Road, Santa Fe, NM 87508. The above-named defendant did cause the death of Helena Hutchins in the commission of negligent use of a firearm. Count 1 in the alternative, involuntary manslaughter, without due caution or circumspection, in that on or about October 21, 2021, in Santa Fe County, State of New Mexico, at Bonanza Creek Ranch, located at 545 Bonanza Creek Road, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87507, the above-named defendant did cause the death of Helena Hutchins by an act committed with the total disregard or indifference for the safety of others, and the act was such that an ordinary person would anticipate that death might occur under the circumstances. Again, Mr. Baldwin is presumed innocent. The burden is always on the state to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. What I say now is the introduction of the case and the instructions. All right. Along with those instructions previously given, these are preliminary only and may be changed during or at the end of trial. First of all of you must pay close attention to the evidence. After you've heard all of the evidence in the case, I will read the final instructions of law to you. You will also receive a written copy of the instructions. You must follow the final instructions in deciding this case. And just so you know, there's going to be no transcript available to you. Juries have asked me that, so I'm telling you up front, okay? Again, the trial is expected to last 8 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week. That's the trial. That does not include your deliberation time. The usual hours of trial will be from 8:30 to 5, typically, with a half hour for lunch. No, an hour for lunch, and then a morning break and an afternoon break. Again, please report to the jury lounge no later than 8:30, unless we're instructing you otherwise for different reasons. But in your mind, you can always expect 8:30 to be here, okay? Do not come into the courtroom unless you are accompanied by my bailiff, Steve, okay? You may take water into the courtroom with you, and you can also take coffee or tea, or if you have a lid on your cup, okay? We stand up out of respect for you because you are the ultimate decision makers as to the facts in this particular case. So when you come into the courtroom, you can go ahead and be seated, and then we will take our seats. And again, it's important to hear. So please raise your hand at any time you can't hear. Don't be self-conscious about it. Don't wait until a couple of questions have been asked. You've got to, if you can't hear, you've got to shoot that hand up right away, okay? All right, this is a public proceeding, so people may go in and out. You may find yourself looking at who goes in and out, but after a while, you'll get used to it. But if there is anything that is distracting you from being able to listen and be involved in this case, please tell Steve immediately. He'll let me know, and I'll do my best to get rid of the distraction. As you know, the temperature we cannot control. All right, so sorry, we'll try to get the county in here if it plummets too high. I doubt it'll plummet too low. You are allowed but not required to take notes during trial. Steve has given you a pen. Okay. Please put your name on the front page of your pad and then take notes beginning on the second page. On breaks, follow Steve's instruction on whether to take the pad with you or whether to leave it on your chair. You don't have to worry about confidentiality. They'll be locked up at night, and when the trial is finished, they'll be shredded. Okay. Don't let your notes take the place of your independent memory of the evidence. When taking notes, please do not forget to pay close attention to the trial. Listening and watching witnesses during their testimony will help you assess their appearance, behavior, memory, and whatever else bears on their credibility. Let's go through the order of trial for those that have not engaged in a criminal trial before. A criminal trial generally begins with the lawyers telling you what they expect the evidence to show. These statements and the statements made by the lawyers during the course of the trial can be of considerable assistance to you in understanding the evidence as it is presented at trial. Is there something distracting you, juror?
No.
I'm talking to the other one. Okay. Statements of the lawyers, however, are not themselves evidence. The evidence will be the testimony of the witnesses, exhibits, and any facts agreed to by the parties. After you have heard all of the evidence, I will give you final instructions on the law. The lawyers will argue the case, and then you will retire to the jury room to arrive at a verdict. It is my duty to decide what evidence you may consider. Your job is to find and determine the facts in this case, which you must do solely upon the evidence received here in court. It is the duty of a lawyer to object to questions, testimony, or exhibits the lawyer believes may not be proper, and you must not hold such objection against the objecting party. I will sustain objections if the question or evidence sought is improper for you to consider. If I sustain an objection to evidence, you must not consider such evidence, nor may you consider any evidence I have told you to disregard. By itself, a question is not evidence. You must not speculate about what would be the answer to a question that I rule cannot be answered. It is for you to decide whether the witnesses know what they are talking about and whether they are being truthful. You may give the testimony of any witness whatever weight you believe it merits. You may take into account, among other things, the witness's ability and opportunities to observe, memory, manner, or any bias or prejudice that the witness may have, and the reasonableness of the testimony considered in light of all of the evidence of the case. No ruling, gesture, or comment I make during the course of the trial should influence your decision in this case. At times, I may ask questions of witnesses. If I do, such questions do not in any way indicate my opinion about the facts or indicate the weight I feel you should give to the testimony of the witnesses. Questions by jurors. Ordinarily, the attorneys will develop all pertinent evidence. It is the exception rather than the rule that an individual juror will have an unanswered question after all of the evidence is presented. However, if you feel an important question has not been asked or answered, write it down on a piece of your notepaper and give it to Steve before this is important, before the witness leaves the stand. Okay? I will decide whether or when your question will be asked. Rules of evidence or other considerations apply to questions you submit and may prevent the question from being asked. If the question is not asked, please do not give it any further consideration. Do not discuss it with the other jurors, and please do not hold it against either side that you did not get an answer. Conduct of jurors. Again, very important. You must decide the case solely upon the evidence received here in court. You must not consider anything you may have read or heard about the case outside the courtroom. During the trial and your deliberations, you must avoid news accounts of the trial, whether they be on radio, television, the internet, or in a newspaper or other written publication. You must not visit the scene of the incident on your own. You cannot make experiments with reference to the case, and in this day and age, you cannot Google or research any of the subject matter of this case. Until you retire to deliberate the case, you must not discuss this case or the evidence with anyone, including each other. Very important, as I said yesterday, when you go in that room, you don't talk about the case. You wait until you are a jury that is deliberating, okay? If an exhibit is admitted in evidence, you should examine it yourself and not talk about it with other jurors until you retire to deliberate. It is important that you keep an open mind and not decide any part of the case until the entire case has been completed and submitted to you. Your special responsibility as jurors demands that throughout this trial, you exercise your judgment impartially and without regard to any sympathy, bias, or prejudice. To minimize the risk of accidentally overhearing something that is not evidence in this case, please continue to wear your jurors' badges while in and around the courthouse. If someone happens to discuss the case in your presence, report that fact immediately to Steve. Although it is natural to visit with people you meet, please do not talk with any of the attorneys, parties, witnesses, or spectators, either in or out of the courtroom. If you meet in the hallways or elevators, there's nothing wrong with saying a good morning or a good afternoon, but your conversation should end there. If the attorneys, parties, and witnesses do not greet you outside of court or avoid riding in the same elevator with you, they are not being rude. They are just carefully observing this rule. All right, so we're going to begin the case. The case starts with opening statements. The state begins first because they have the burden of proof, and then the defendant. All right, go ahead, counsel.
Judge, just one quick housekeeping matter while Ms. Johnson's getting set up.
All right.
Really quick, Judge Summers really a stickler for, I mean, she's just kind of strict. I noticed yesterday a juror made a face and she admonished them. She's like, if you don't like that, well, you're going to have to adjust your attitude. So when she noticed that one juror, shook their head or whatever it was that happened just now, expect that because she doesn't miss anything. She is very strict. And while we're waiting for opening statements to begin, thank you to Bessie Knox for becoming a new YouTube member. Welcome, Bessie. We really appreciate you being here. And Denise says that, interesting, Larry's tweets arrive ahead of the courtroom, must be lagging. There is definitely a lag. The court feed is a little bit behind. And so we are going to hear from Larry before anything happens, pretty much. And I will do my very best to share that with you as long as nobody is talking. I want to make sure not to talk over the testimony, talk over anybody saying anything important. I'm going to be very careful about that. We have the prosecutor conferring with the judge. Funny story, yesterday, Larry and I were in the hallway. We were waiting for the elevator after the day ended. And he came over and gave me a little kiss. And the prosecutor was standing right behind us. So I forget her name. If anybody in the chat knows the name of the prosecutor, please shout it out. But that was a little funny.
Thank you. Good morning. When someone plays make-believe with a real gun in a real-life workplace, and while playing make-believe with that gun violates the cardinal rules of firearm safety, people's lives are endangered, and someone could be killed. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what this case is about. It's simple, it's straightforward. The evidence will show that someone who played make-believe with a real gun and violated the cardinal rules of firearm safety is the defendant, Alexander Baldwin. You will hear over the course of the next few days that in the fall of 2021, a movie called Rust began filming at the Bonanza Creek Ranch just south of Santa Fe in Santa Fe County. You will learn that this movie was a Western with a lot of gun action. And while it was a movie set, it was a real-life workplace for many people. But you will hear this workplace was on a tight budget. And you will learn that some of the people who were hired to work at this workplace were very inexperienced. And one of those was the armorer, a very young woman named Hannah Gutierrez Reed. You will hear testimony from crew members who worked on the set, who will tell you that to them, Ms. Gutierrez's inexperience was obvious. You will also learn that this workplace has some talented people. And one of those was the director of photography, a vibrant 42-year-old rising star named Helena Hutchins. You will also learn that the director of this film was Joel Souza, another talented individual who cares deeply for his projects. The evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that like in many workplaces, there are people who act in a reckless manner and place other individuals in danger and act without due regard for the safety of others. That, you will hear, was the defendant, Alec Baldwin, the lead actor on this film. You will learn that this movie began filming on or about October 6, 2021. But the defendant did not arrive on set to begin working until about October 13. And you will learn that prior to arriving on the set to work, he requested to be assigned the biggest gun available. So he was assigned this revolver, a replica of an 1873 single-action revolver manufactured by Pieta Firearms in Italy. You will hear from Alessandro Pieta, who will tell you he manufactured this gun. And he will tell you he manufactured it in 2015. And he will explain the quality control measures that Pieta Firearms follows in order to ensure that firearms that are manufactured by Pieta Firearms don't have any problems or issues. Mr. Pieta will tell you that this firearm he himself manufactured, and that when Pieta sent it to EMF, which is the company that distributes firearms for Pieta Firearms in the United States, this gun was in perfect working condition. You will hear from Justin Neal, who is a representative of EMF, a company out of California that has historically been known to provide firearms to the movie industry. Mr. Neal will tell you that when EMF received this firearm in 2017, it was in perfect working order. And in fact, when EMF had this firearm, it was subjected to numerous quality control inspections because it was used as a show gun at gun shows. The evidence will show that in September of 2021, an individual by the name of Seth Kenny was contacted by the folks with Rust Production. They asked Mr. Kenny if he would be able to provide some firearms for the filming, for use during the filming of Rust. You will learn that Mr. Kenny owns PDQ Firearm and Prop. It's a duly licensed firearms dealership. Mr. Kenny then contacted EMF and ordered several single-action replica revolvers. And in September, or on September 29, 2021, Mr. Kenny purchased this gun. And you will hear that Mr. Kenny received it from EMF, and it was in perfect working order. The only thing that Mr. Kenny did to this gun was to insert the firing pin, because since it was a show gun, it didn't have a firing pin. But you'll learn that that's a very easy step. All he had to do was just insert the pin, and that's it. And then Mr. Kenny had the firearms, this one and some other firearms, transferred to the set of Rust at the Bonanza Creek Ranch. And on October 13th, 2021, the defendant was supposed to have a training session with this gun and this young armorer. But you will see that during this training session, the defendant had somebody or a couple of people filming him while he's running around shooting this gun. You will learn, ladies and gentlemen, or you'll hear during this trial the use of the words prop gun. And you'll learn a prop gun is this real gun. It's not a toy. It's not made of rubber. It's a real gun. You will also see evidence, ladies and gentlemen, that during the days before that fateful October 21st day, the defendant handled this firearm multiple occasions. You will see video footage of the defendant firing this firearm, working perfectly fine. But you'll see evidence, ladies and gentlemen, that each time the defendant handled this firearm, he did not do a safety check with that inexperienced armorer. And you'll hear that the reason he didn't do a safety check is because he didn't want to offend her. The evidence you will see will paint a real-life picture of a real-life workplace where this defendant mishandled this gun. You will see him using this gun as a pointer to point at people, to point at things. You will see him cock the hammer when he's not supposed to cock the hammer. You will see him put his finger on the trigger when his finger's not supposed to be on the trigger. You will hear about numerous breaches of firearm safety with this defendant and this use of this firearm. And the evidence will show that on the morning of October 21st, 2021, the camera crew walked off set. And you will learn that one of the reasons that camera crew walked out is because they were concerned over safety breaches with the use of firearms. The evidence will show that the morning of October 21st started out a couple of hours behind. They filmed some scenes at this church on the Bonanza Creek Ranch. And you will see that one of those scenes required the defendant to pull out his gun. This was in the morning. Pull out his gun. And you'll hear the director tell him, pull it out and hold it. And the first time, you'll see evidence the defendant does what the director tells him. But you will hear the director tell you that many times the defendant would do his own thing. So then the director in the morning asked him, okay, do it again, just like you did now. The defendant pulls out the gun, but this time he cocks the hammer. The evidence will show they then broke for lunch. And around 1:30 or so, they came back to this church to do what's called a blocking. The evidence will show that Ms. Hutchins wanted to do a blocking for an insert. And you will learn what a blocking is, just working out the details of the moves of the actor. It wasn't even a rehearsal. You will hear from one of the witnesses who walked into the church and saw the defendant kind of playing with his gun. And then you will see evidence or hear evidence that Ms. Hutchins and Mr. Souza were talking to the defendant about doing this insert. And the insert was just supposed to be from here to here. And it was supposed to be of the defendant just slowly taking his gun out of his holster, and just holding it at an angle. The evidence will show that someone asked the armorer to bring the defendant's gun to him. And she did. She brought it into the church, showed it to David Halls, who you will learn was the first assistant director. The gun was empty. Ms. Gutierrez then handed the gun to the defendant. But then you will hear that Ms. Gutierrez was given the gun back, and she took it and loaded it with dummy rounds. And what you will learn is that dummy rounds are inert rounds. They look like real rounds, but they are very easy to tell that they are not because they'll rattle. Ms. Gutierrez then went back to the church, showed the revolver to the first assistant director very fast. They only checked about 3 rounds, very quick. And they missed 1 round. You will learn that one of the rounds in that revolver was a real round. And the evidence will show that Ms. Gutierrez then handed the gun to the defendant. And what you will learn is that once again, the defendant failed to do a gun check or a safety check with this armor. So he takes the firearm, puts it in his holster. Then Ms. Hutchins and Mr. Souza were doing this blocking. And the evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that the defendant, again, did his own thing. You will hear from an individual by the name of Kent Jorgensen. Mr. Jorgensen will tell you that he's been involved in drafting and revising movie set safety rules. You will learn that these movie set safety rules require actors like the defendant to treat every firearm as though it's loaded, to never point a firearm at another person, and to never put your finger on the trigger unless you're prepared to shoot or to destroy whatever's in front of you. The evidence will show that on October 21st, 2021, after that lunch break, the defendant once again violated those set safety rules. And during this blocking, the director had instructed him to just slowly take out that gun and just hold it at an angle. But you will see if the defendant takes it out quickly the first time, points it. And you will hear witness testimony who will tell you the first time he does it, his finger is on or around the trigger. He does it again, takes it out very fast, points it. And once again, you will hear testimony that his finger was on or around the trigger. And the evidence will show that that third and fatal time, he takes it out once again, fast, hammer's cocked, he cocks the hammer, points it straight at Ms. Hutchins, and fires that gun, sending that live bullet right into Ms. Hutchins' body. You will learn that this bullet was a .45 caliber round that entered Ms. Hutchins' body right underneath her right underarm. It perforated her right lung. It traveled through her spine, lacerating her spinal cord, and then it exited on the left side of her back. That bullet then went into Joel Souza's right shoulder, and it came to rest in his back, from where doctors removed it once he was transported to St. Vincent's Hospital here in Santa Fe. You will learn, ladies and gentlemen, that Ms. Hutchins did not have the same fate. You will see the aftermath of the shooting, and you will see medics frantically working to save Ms. Hutchins, to stabilize her, to transport her, to airlift her to UNM Hospital. But the damage from that bullet was too much. Ms. Hutchins succumbed to her injuries and bled to death. The evidence will show that meanwhile, after the shooting, the defendant began to claim he didn't pull the trigger. The evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that's not possible. You will hear from Mr. Pieta himself, who will tell you that gun will not discharge without a pull of the trigger. You will hear from firearms experts who will tell you that gun will not discharge without a pull of that trigger. The evidence will show that law enforcement officials arrived at the scene on October 21st after the shooting and immediately took this gun into their custody. Then later, they asked the FBI for assistance in processing this gun for forensics and examination. You will learn that the gun and some ammunition that was taken from the set and from PDQ arms were sent to the FBI for analysis. You will learn that the gun first went to the DNA section of the lab, where a DNA analyst found the defendant's DNA on this gun. And then the gun was transferred to the firearms and tool mark section of the lab, where a firearms examiner examined this gun very carefully and closely. Bryce Ziegler, who is the firearms examiner for the FBI, will tell you that when he received this firearm, he first examined it. He didn't see any defects, didn't see any modifications. He tried and he checked the hammer in the 3 different positions, cocking positions. He checked the quarter cock position, fine. Checked the half cock position, fine. Checked the full cock position, fine. And when he held it in the full cock position, you will hear that hammer held until he pulled the trigger. You will also hear that Mr. Ziegler test fired this gun 12 different times. And each time that gun fired as it was designed. Each time when he pulled that trigger, it fired. And he will tell you that not once did this gun malfunction or discharge on its own. Now, the evidence will show that because the defendant had been claiming that he didn't pull the trigger, Mr. Ziegler suggested one last test to the sheriff's department. Mr. Ziegler told the sheriff's department that he could do what's called an accidental discharge test. He obtained authorization to do this test, and you will hear that he left that test for last because that test could potentially damage the gun. Mr. Ziegler went forward after he received this authorization and conducted the accidental discharge test. And you will hear, ladies and gentlemen, that during that test, a couple of the internal components of this firearm damaged. You will hear that the trigger sear and the full cock hammer notch were damaged during the accidental discharge testing. The evidence will show, however, that before this accidental discharge testing by the FBI, this gun functioned and worked perfectly fine. You'll see the video footage of the multiple occasions during which the defendant used this firearm on the set, and each time he fired it, it was working just fine. And in fact, you'll hear evidence that the defendant himself admitted in December of 2021 that this gun didn't have any mechanical problems. You will hear from the 2 of the country's leading experts on firearms forensics, Michael Haig and Lucian Haig. And they will tell you that they examined the revolver and the damaged pieces extensively. They will tell you that the damage to the full cock trigger notch is consistent with the accidental discharge testing that was conducted by the FBI. Lucian Haig will tell you that in August of 2023, he examined the trigger sear, the other piece, and that when he looked at it initially with the naked eye, there was nothing wrong with it. He couldn't see anything. But then he put it under the microscope and he noticed some kind of rough microscopic diagonal lines on the surface of the trigger sear. And since at the time he did not know how Mr. Ziegler had conducted the accidental discharge test, he opined that these very small microscopic lines were likely not caused by the FBI accidental discharge testing, but he could not exclude that as the source of those lines. Then a few weeks ago, Mr. Haig will tell you that he spoke with Mr. Ziegler and he learned how Mr. Ziegler had conducted the accidental discharge test. Mr. Ziegler explained that he affixed that firearm onto a fixed platform and then struck the firearm on 6 different planes with a rubber mallet. And Mr. Ziegler explained to Mr. Haig that he had not affixed the mallet to another fixed device. Instead, he did it freehand. Mr. Haig will tell you, with his 50 plus years of experience as a firearms forensics expert, he opined or concluded that those very tiny microscopic diagonal lines on the surface of the trigger sear were likely caused by the FBI's accidental discharge test. The evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that regardless of how those tiny microscopic lines got on that trigger sear, these firearms experts will tell you that those would not affect the functionality of this firearm. At the end of this case, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to conclude and be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that on October 21st, 2021, that gun the defendant had asked to be assigned worked perfectly fine as it was designed, and that the fatal and one of the main problems that afternoon of October 21st was that the defendant didn't do a gun safety check with that inexperienced armorer. He pointed the gun at another human being, cocked the hammer, and pulled that trigger in reckless disregard for Ms. Hutchins' safety. And you will be convinced that the only true and just verdict in this case, so that true justice can be served, is a verdict of guilty to involuntary manslaughter. Thank you.
Wow, that was
Spyro?
beautiful.
Just touch the screen. Yeah. I have to touch it harder. Yes, you talk.
So while we're waiting for defense, Larry has been tweeting throughout this entire thing, and he notes that the jury is paying very close attention to these opening statements.
Thank you.
They are
Good morning. This was an unspeakable tragedy, but Alec Baldwin committed no crime. He was an actor acting, playing the role of Harlan Rust. An actor playing a character can act in ways that are lethal, that just aren't lethal on a movie set. These cardinal rules, they're not cardinal rules on a movie set. And I don't have to tell you much more about this because you've all seen gunfights in movies. And the reason that can happen is because safety is ensured before the actor. On this movie set, there were people responsible for ensuring the safety of the set and the firearm. Those people failed in their duties, but Alec Baldwin committed no crime. The most critical issue in this case is how a real bullet got on a movie set. The evidence will show that real bullets are never supposed to be on movie sets. Movie sets use dummies and blanks. Movie sets use dummies, fake inert bullets that look like real bullets, they don't go bang, for when you want a close-up of the gun. You can't tell them apart from live bullets by looking at them, which is why live bullets can be nowhere near a movie set. And if the director wants a shot of the gun going, bang, poof, there's blanks that they can use. And those blanks look nothing like real bullets. And they are used for those shooting scenes. And, they'll play these videos that they described of Alec's, firearm in the movie going bang, poof, and people are conditioned to seeing people firing weapons and thinking that's a dangerous act. That's a dangerous act. And they will play those videos and give you that image to try to tarnish him in your eyes. But that's not what happened here. On this set, there was a real bullet, something that should never be on a movie set, something which has nothing to do with making a movie. And you will hear no evidence, not one word, that Alec Baldwin had anything to do with that real bullet being brought onto that set. The second critical issue in this case is, why did a real bullet get loaded into a prop movie gun? It is undisputed that the bullet was loaded into the gun by the armorer, the person on set whose responsibility it was to ensure the gun was safe. And so picture that moment of the armorer placing a live bullet into that firearm. You hear the prosecutor say, he did this, or he performed in a certain way. He picked out the biggest gun as his prop. It's to tarnish him in your eyes. You will hear no evidence whatsoever. No evidence that anything Mr. Baldwin did, that something he did in that moment, that horrible moment when she put that bullet in that gun, none of it had anything to do with Alec Baldwin. And finally, the first assistant director's job, the head of safety, Dave Halls, checks it before it goes to the actor. And he will tell you he made a tragic mistake. He failed to detect a live bullet. And Alec Baldwin had nothing to do with that either. So all this evidence that the prosecutor just outlined, all of it, has nothing to do with these critical issues. Nothing. Which leads us to this. The evidence will show that on a movie set, safety has to occur before the gun is placed in the actor's hands. In this case, this unique case on a movie set, the prop gun was placed in Mr. Baldwin's hands and cold gun was announced, meaning it had been checked and double checked by those responsible to ensure the gun was safe. It was just a prop. They all thought it was just a prop and could do no harm. The actor's job is to act, to rehearse, to choreograph his moves, to memorize his lines. He's Harlan Rust. He's an outlaw running for his life, who in the incident in question, he's pulling a six-shooter to try to defend himself. That's why the gun has to be safe before it gets into the actor's hands. His mind is somewhere else, in the being of another, a century away, an outlaw. He must be able to take that weapon and use it as the person he's acting would, to wave it, to point it, to pull the trigger like actors do, in ways that would be lethal in the real world, but are not lethal on a movie set. And I'm going to show you that scene now before lunch. And if we could just play action.
I'm gonna go find some help.
I don't need no damn help.
You're gonna die if I don't.
He's wounded and on the run. So play again. Continue.
Harlan Rust. Need you stand up nice and slow, tossing your weapons you have.
He's on the church pew, bleeding, his hand gripping the revolver. He would defend himself against the men in the movie. Play.
One more. You good? Ready? Harlan Rust. Did you get up nice and slow, tossing the weapons you have?
Well, how close can I get right there?
Joel, you want me to wait to give you that line till he lands? Till camera lands?
Yeah.
Yep.
Setting this one. Draw your gun and look up. Point your gun, okay?
Okay, which way? Camera right or left?
This way.
So camera left for now.
I'll stand right here for you, Alec.
So whip it out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me get this all greased. Ready?
Did you really just say whip it out?
Okay, ready?
Oh,
Ready.
good Lord.
And set. Ready, and action.
Harlan Rust.
Do one more just like that. You got one more? Yeah.
Ready, ready, ready,
They
ready.
want him to do it again. There's no danger. They want him to do it again.
And set. Ready, and action.
Harlan Rust.
So the fact that he did another take means that there's no danger. Okay.
Nice.
I'm not sure if that's going to fly. What do you all think?
It's a scene similar to scenes we've all seen in movies and television, performed by thousands of actors. And the scene that continues after lunch is the same scene. It's just not, unfortunately, captured on videotape. And the scene they envisioned and acted out, that prop gun was positioned in the afternoon so close to the camera that you could see inside, that you could feel it. You could feel that it was loaded. And it was loaded, of course, with dummies. Dummies to make it look like a real gun. But this one time, one of those dummies was a real bullet. The real bullet was not known to anyone in that church. Amongst the actors, directors, and crew in the scene, everyone was doing exactly how they go about their business every day on a movie, not as if some lethal element had been included in the environment. You will see creativity and movement and everyone talking and vibrant. No one had any idea that this venomous, toxic element had been inserted into this magic they were creating. But it did. It entered that place. It killed an amazing person. It wounded another, and it changed lives forever.
Had been inserted. Distancing language. Very
And so to
interesting.
find out what happened on that movie set, you need to do something that the prosecutors could never do. You have to step back and remember what they were doing on a movie set. What were Helena Hutchins, the cinematographer, Joel Souza, the director, and Alec Baldwin, the actor, doing on Bonanza Creek Ranch? You know, movies and magic have always been closely associated. The first people that made movies were magicians. And this imagination that happens in movies, you know, King Kong, he can stand above a city, and Superman can fly, horses and snakes and gun battles. For this to all work, for cinematography, what Helena did to work, for acting to work, you have to be so close to the barrier of real and imagined that the viewer feels that they're there, that it's real. The viewer can't see strings from the stuntman. The stuntman must leap. The snake must hiss. And guns happen in movies all over this country for many decades. Bang, bang. You've all seen it. Guns have been an element of theater and film and television since the earliest of times. Depictions of war and combat, Spartacus, it stirs audiences because it feels real. Later films, Platoon, Apocalypse Now, they showed the unvarnished realities of war. This ranch in Santa Fe, it had been the scene to many gunfights and movie scenes, well before Alec was even born. Laramie, Butch and the Sundance Kid, and these westerns.
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Huh. The second he said bang bang, I just thought of Colin Albert, and I couldn't. I wanted to interject. I'm not sure about this opening, you guys. I appreciate where it's coming from, but is this doing it for you? Because it's not doing it for me, and I'm biased. I'm willing to admit that. Now, I really wonder, what's this little sidebar about? Guess we'll never know.
The evidence will show that guns are in movies because movies are about people's lives and guns are in people's lives. So let's talk about the evidence and how the lethal bullet got there. How did this happen and how did it unfold? The evidence will be the following. Everybody on a movie set has a role. The armor armors, the director directs, the actor acts. They work in harmony, but they have a division of responsibility. Safety being important has the first assistant director, whose name is Dave Halls, above the armorer and sort of the safety of the set. And on that day in question, the cast and the creative directors and crew in the church, it's a fake church. Their actors are not in their normal clothes. It's costumes. There's debris falling from the ceiling. It's fake debris. And they yell out cold gun. And that is an important term you're going to learn in this case. It means that the gun is cold. No one need worry. But even that requires a little bit more explanation. Cold gun doesn't mean no live bullets. There are for sure 100% no live bullets on movie sets. That's unimaginable. Cold means you don't even have the fake blank poof in it. You don't need to worry even about eye gear or earplugs for that fake bang. It means it's empty, inert, cosmetic, can do no harm. Cold guns can't hurt people. It's impossible. literally impossible for a cold gun to hurt somebody. You could hurt you more by dropping it on your foot.
So the
And
idea
that's
is
why these artists are carrying on in their art.
he was told it was cold.
Cold gun, all clear to go. And the armorer on this set hands a prop gun to Alec, like she had done times before, like people have done with him in movies for a generation. And he's there. He's in the movie set church with his movie set gear and his holster, and he takes his movie set gun. And he's deeply focused in that moment on his character. The artists, the crew members, they're moving around him. Again, no eye gear or earplugs, nothing to protect against. They carry on. They practice. They rehearse. They take a lunch break. Some folks leave, some don't. They continue the scene. Dave Halls, the head of safety, is actually practicing the movement so they can frame the footage that will happen after lunch. And the prop cold gun comes back. The prop cold gun comes back, cold gun. They call it again. Same gun, again, safe. The first assistant director, Dave Halls, head of safety for the entire film, a man with decades of experience, comes and takes the additional step and inspects the gun. Verifies again, cold gun. Everyone relax. Go back to focus on the making of a movie. There's nothing in the gun that can hurt anybody. And Alex sits on that pew. And the creative directors, the crew, they're moving around him, in front of him. And Harlan Rust, he begins, like the prosecutor told you, rehearsing, acting. This is a completely mundane, uneventful, routine act on a movie set. And so everybody carries on. Nobody fathomed, imagined, foresaw any possible danger. They moved around Alec as he practiced his draw. As the prosecutor put it, working out the details of the move and the actor. He does it again, does it in a different way. Nobody bats an eye. And they will tell you that the investigation revealed that Baldwin was practicing drawing and pointing the weapon of the scene with guidance and instruction from Helena Hutchins and Joel Souza. The gun goes off. Everybody's shocked. Alec is startled. He immediately says, I didn't mean to shoot I didn't pull the trigger. Immediately. What the hell just happened? They collectively explain. Shock turns to panic. 911 is called.
Out at Bonanza Creek Ranch right now. We've had 2 people shot on a movie set accidentally.
You said someone was shot?
2 people accidentally with gunshots as on movie set, Bonanza Creek Ranch. Send it.
I'll connect you with medical dispatch. Don't need that.
San Jose Fire and EMS, what's the location of the emergency? Bonanza Creek Ranch has had 2 people accidentally shot on a movie set by a prop gun. We need help immediately. Okay. I just fucking AD that yelled at me at lunch because asking about revisions. This motherfucker, did you see him lean over my table and yell at me?
911.
Just the guns. He's responsible for what happened in the
Now, Mimi?
No. I'm a script supervisor.
How many people are injured?
2 that I know of. I was sitting, we were rehearsing, and it went off, and I ran out.
Accidentally shot
On a movie set with a prop gun. The fucking AD, it was his responsibility. Not a word about Alec Baldwin. While they're en route, police, EMS, the cast and crew are outside trying to figure out what happened, frantic, talking to those responsible for the prop and its safety. The armorer is yelling, sorry. Halls, the first assistant director, is panicked. The prop master, Sarah Zachary, I don't know exactly where she is at that point, but they check the gun feverishly. They take the ammo out of the gun. They look at it. What the heck happened? They go back to the prop cart that houses the ammo. They're touching the gun and manipulating the gun, emptying it. They go and move some stuff off the prop cart, trying to figure it out. Sarah Zachary, the head of props, will tell you she threw some stuff out. And eventually, of course, EMS and police arrive pretty soon thereafter. And Helena Hutchins and Joel Souza, the director, are transported to the hospital where Helena tragically passes away. And I'm not going to be asking questions about her condition after she was wounded or the medical interventions that followed. Her injuries, the efforts to revive her, are not in dispute in this case. The evidence will be there. The prosecutor may present some of these emotionally charged images, but we're not going to be asking questions about that, and it's not an issue in dispute in this case. You jurors are allowed to ask yourselves whether or not that should be the focus or the focus should be the evidence. So police enter the scene. They have lapel cameras. Thank God they have lapel cameras. You want to see what happens? The evidence will show you can play the videotape. Want to see if they take the right gun? Play the videotape. Want to make sure what the people said or did, they're remembering correctly? Play the videotape. And so they immediately recover the prop gun and they secure it. That's off to the side. And the reason that you preserve things in the moment is so that you know what existed in the moment, the evidence in the moment, the people and the witnesses and what they said in the moment. These folks, the members of Rust, they'd never been through anything like this before. That is why what they originally said matters so much in this case. If you remember anything I say today as the evidence proceeds, remember that. Look at the evidence of what the people of Rust said and did that day. Life changes, memories change. There are human motivations, internal pressure, external pressure. That's why preservation is so important. So the police continue. In terms of the prop cart and the prop ammo that's on the cart, it's manipulated, altered, kind of messy. And, you know, at this accidental shooting on a movie set, the police begin to make some mistakes. No one had ever investigated a prop gun on a movie set before. They recover the prop gun, but they don't wear gloves. They don't have the prop cart inside the crime scene. Someone moves it onto the crime scene. People start touching it and showing, okay, this is a dummy, this is a blank. And then they make another mistake that matters in this case with some more significance, which is that they don't secure the prop truck that houses the cart. See, that cart that they roll off comes from a truck where all of the ammunition, all of the firearms are, and that's where they're stored. They don't secure the prop truck for several days. And then the prop house that supplies the truck, that supplies the cart, they don't secure for over a month. A lot of mistakes. They had never investigated a case in a movie set. But they had the prop gun. That was key. And so they needed to figure out where the live bullet came from. They had the shell casing, Starline brass. That's the sort of make. You'll hear that phrase, Starline brass. And the police were right to focus on that. That was the lethal element. And so they work outward. Makes good enough sense. Folks around the ammo and the gun to be interviewed at the precinct. The armorer at the precinct. She loaded the live bullet. Halls, head of safety, he double-checked. And Alec walks up to the police. You'll see this early today. And he says, I'm here, whatever you want to do, whatever you need me to do. Just tell me where to go. And Sarah Zachary, the prop master who threw out the stuff at the cart, they missed her that night to bring to the precinct. But the rest of them at the precinct. And thankfully, we have the lapel cameras.
And then they cleared the gun outside after his request, and I witnessed them clear it and saw the bullets.
Okay. So the one was,
The one that was missing, the one that fired, we don't know, but all the other ones were proper.
I can pause this. I can turn this off. Move on. That was just a quick snapshot of the scene.
Let's approach this is Ms. Johnson.
They consented to the exhibit.
Okay, what's this about now? Another sidebar during defense opening. I'm not very impressed with this opening. And I know it's going to be really hard for me to remove my bias. But I'm noticing in the comments, people are saying, you know, you could listen to Jackson and Yannetti talk all day. This guy, not so much. A couple people like him. Objection on the video, it might be. Now I'm trying to figure out what this is about. It might have to do with one of the motions in limine, because they argued about using specific video footage. Let's find out.
The remaining witnesses from inside the church are interviewed on the scene. They're interviewed with lapel cameras. They're interviewed by the lead detective, Detective Cannell. And those witnesses, some of them will come in here and testify. And not a single one of them will tell you anything different than what I'm about to tell you about the evidence. The gun was double checked, verified it was a cold gun, not an actor's responsibility to check. Safety was ensured before. Alec was doing his practicing, his rehearsing, his movements. People manipulate and point guns on movie sets. The gun went off during the rehearsal. No one saw him intentionally pull the trigger. It was obviously a tragic accident, but Alec committed no homicide. Alec took the gun from those charged with its safety. He did not tamper with it. He did not load it himself. He did not leave it unattended. It completed his costume and his character. It was an actor handling a prop and integrating it into the character of Harlan Rust. There was a dedicated professional there, off camera, whose sole sacred responsibility was that prop safety. And Dave Halls, the head of safety, was there by her side. Everyone relied on them. And it was tragic that they let them down. He was just acting as he has done for generations, and it was the safety apparatus that failed them all. So law enforcement continues. They need to find the live bullet. That was the lethal element. So they, led by Detective Cano, execute a search warrant on the church. And that's what law enforcement does. They immediately go to a judge. They say, this is what we need to do. They go into the church urgently before anything can be altered. They're confirming it was an accident, not a crime in the church. They search for guns and ammunition, videos and photos. There was no further answer in the church. They had the prop gun. They had all those witnesses secured. Their statements are clear. Alec had committed no crime, but the bullet was a mystery. And so they focus on the bullet, the critical lethal bullet, and how did it enter the movie set. So they had the prop cart, and then they go do the warrant on the prop truck. And so at that point, and I'm going to put up a photo so that you can see who some of these individuals are. They're trying to figure out when they go to the truck, what is the source of the lethal bullet? And so they execute a warrant on the truck approximately a week later. The Seth Kenny that you heard about in the prosecutor's opening, the supplier for the set, he's there. Sarah Zachary, the prop master, she's there. And they walk through what's inside of the prop truck with law enforcement. But there's no answer to the lethal bullet. And this case then takes on, all this pressure. The media begins swirling. Where is the lethal bullet? How did it get on that movie set? And what about that actor, Alec Baldwin, who had nothing to do with why the bullet got on the movie set? And so police and prosecutors, they work hand in hand, meeting after meeting, trying to find the lethal bullet, meeting with Seth Kenny, meeting with Sarah Zachary, the prop master, the supplier. Where is it? And about a month after the incident, Sarah Zachary finally sits down with law enforcement to answer some questions. And she explains to them that she threw away some stuff. She disposed of some stuff. And the prosecutors and police keep meeting, swirling media. And then at that point, they go to the last step, right? We've done the cart, we've gone to the truck, met with Sarah Zachary, and they go execute a search warrant on, as the prosecutor told you, PDQ, the prop house. And again, Seth Kenny's there to greet them, let them in, and they don't find the lethal bullet. They never did. They never did. And as things roll into police and prosecutors, cell phones and photos and forensics, looking for this shiny object, they found another shiny object. Instead of trying to find the source of the lethal bullet, they focused on Mr. Baldwin. But Mr. Baldwin was like every other actor. He goes bang bang in movies. He's told when guns are cold or not. He rehearses and acts as his character. Safety proceeds before the actor. Once the actor has the prop gun, he can handle it however a person he's acting as would. A properly cleared gun can't hurt anybody. And so they told you about some of the things that Alex said in the statements that they will take or pick out a few lines from. But he won't tell you anything different, that he took a gun loaded and cleared by the armor and the AD. He made motions with the gun as he was rehearsing. He didn't intentionally pull the trigger. The gun just went off. And he does say, I didn't have a problem with the gun before. And this idea, that they said that he didn't want to check because he would offend them, in this moment, he's been doing this for 40 years, the evidence will show. And he has habits, and there are also SAG guidelines that tell actors what to do and what not to do. And the SAG guidelines don't tell actors to check the gun. You will see them. That's not the actor's role. And so I guess the point that they're trying to make is that why in this specific moment he doesn't break his habit of 40 years and check it differently and sort of insult them this one time. If he had done that and started playing with the gun in that way, they'd be saying, arrogant actor, why is he doing that? So they will play these statements, Alex statements. You're going to hear a man in shock and grief, a father, an artist, worried about his family. You hear he's, on one of the calls, he's going to meet with the decedent's family, the Hutchins family, and he's upset about that. He will talk to law enforcement. He will call them. He doesn't need a lawyer. He didn't commit a crime. He will call them and offer to meet and speak over and over again. And ask anyone in the acting world. Actors know. Actors rely on armors and point guns and shoot guns.
And they also check the
Armorers
weapons
Act,
because it's
what they did is clear and proven.
common
The
sense.
head of safety, you will learn, took responsibility for his verification failure. But Alec committed no homicide. So law enforcement didn't have a homicide case against Alec Baldwin, but they changed the question. You heard the prosecutor tell you about this. Did he pull the trigger? Did he pull the trigger? Did he intentionally pull the trigger? And if he did, of course, that would only make his statement incorrect, right? That would mean he would have misspoke, been incorrect. And I want to stop for a moment and just tell you, because you're going to hear a lot of testimony, expert testimony, like the prosecutor told you, about the gun functioning imperfectly. Did he let the hammer down when he cocked it? Did he hit the trigger? Did he, in a calculated manner, as the prosecutor made a motion, fire the gun like that? And when this issue is discussed, it's easy to sort of pull yourself into courtroom land and away from a movie set. On a movie set, you're allowed to pull the trigger. So even if he intentionally pulled the trigger like the prosecutor just demonstrated, that doesn't make him guilty of homicide. He did not know or have any reason to know that gun was loaded with a live bullet. That's the key. That live bullet is the key. That is the lethal element. But again, as the prosecutor told you, if they could prove that he intentionally pulled the trigger and he was imperfect, imprecise, wrong with what he said, then maybe you take that and you say he's lying. And if he's a liar, he committed homicide. And so what they do is they take the prop gun. They're blinded by the shine. They're blinded by trying to disprove Alec. They take it and they order a destructive test on the firearm. They order the FBI to take a test that they know will destroy the firearm. It's a pointless, unnecessary test where they blindly try to make this big case by taking a mallet and smashing the firearm. At the time that they did that, they knew that Alec had adamantly maintained that he was manipulating the hammer and the gun just went off. That the witnesses said it went off out of nowhere. That there are these accidental discharges that happen on the set. That guns have issues in the real world. That this gun had a hair trigger. And the owner's manual of this specific gun actually says that if you load it with a live round or any round in the chamber, in that last position, and you drop it like you see a cowboy in a movie, this type of old cowboy gun can accidentally go off. I don't remember hearing anything about that. The evidence will show that. So rather than trying to answer the question of what happened, they proceed with the destructive test. They eliminate the one item that could prove what Alex said and believed. They didn't offer him a chance to test the gun. They didn't take the gun apart before they broke it and destroyed it and look at its inner workings. They didn't turn on their videotape. They just destroyed it. Can't ever be tested in the same condition it was in that day. Won't ever allow Alec to show his truth. And the destruction of this gun that you will hear in this evidence is symbolic of this entire case. Because the officers will tell you at that point, they weren't really investigating anymore. They were trying to disprove Alec, to get Alec, to have this day. And so after the destruction of the firearm, They hired some expert witnesses you heard about to pick up the pieces, so to speak. And the state retained Lucian Haig, an expert with over half a century of experience. And he will come into court and he will tell you he's never seen anything like this in his entire career. They conducted a pointless test, a test that would lead to inevitable destruction of the firearm. There were other correct tests that they could have done to prove whether or not it could have accidentally discharged. None of the experts can test the gun in the condition it was in on the day in question. Why? Not because of something that Alec Baldwin or the crew members of Rust did. They were all clear. The gun just went off. But because of something that law enforcement did. And they deprived him of that opportunity. However, Lucian Haig will tell you that in his analysis, he did find modification that he thought likely pre-existed the FBI testing. And what that modification means and how it impacted the gun is hard to perfectly know, of course, but it was a modification on an important part, the critical part of the firearm. And it was important enough for them to put into a report and to write a new opinion about. They felt this revelation had to be sent to prosecutors. And they maintained that position that this modification was a matter of import for almost a year. And then a few weeks ago, before trial, they just took it back. They just took it back. You will get to see the circumstances of that take back. How far they would go for the shiny object. They never solved the question of the lethal bullet. They destroyed the gun, and all they were left with is Alec Baldwin and the movie they intend to put on. But because they never solved the lethal bullet, they eliminated the prop gun. There will not be one witness, not one shred of evidence in this trial that Alec knew or should have known the gun was loaded with a live round. So they can't prove their high-profile homicide case. So they will proceed to then here and now tell you about other things, other evidence that you will hear that has nothing to do with what happened in the church on October 21st. That the movie set as a whole was improper or anything, that they hired the wrong armorer, I think I heard in opening. The evidence will show that the armorer was hired by somebody else, trained by somebody else, had done gun scenes on Rust with somebody else before Alec even got there. She was the daughter and the apprentice of the most famous and well-respected armorer in Hollywood. And she had just left serving, being an armorer for Nicolas Cage on another Western.
Keyword was.
Then they'll come in and they'll say, but what about the movie guidelines? You heard about Mr. Jorgensen and the movie guidelines. That one of the protocols wasn't followed. Or there was a set safety issue about something unrelated to this. Like these movie guidelines on a set or the things of Navy SEALs and NASA. The guidelines were followed. They followed the safety guidelines. Actors don't check the weapons. Safety is ensured by dedicated personnel. So they will say, but there had been accidental discharges on the set, that guns had fired accidentally prior, not related to Alec, by the way. But again, that's the people we looked at. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's fault, Sandra Zachary's fault, perhaps, Dave Hall's faults, workplace issues. Some of them will end up, and you will hear the witnesses in this case. Many of them have brought civil lawsuits. And you'll hear that, in those civil lawsuits, they're presenting evidence to try to meet a burden, not a criminal beyond a reasonable doubt homicide trial burden, but they're going to try to prove their cases in civil courts. And that's where faults and accidents are at worst 99% worked out. Not here. But you'll hear these members of the Rust crew come in here. They'll try to make sense of this for you. Some of them have sued. Some of them are in grief. Some of them are in grief and have sued. And part of this grief they feel, that everybody feels, is understandable. And what they will do is they will tell you, if only we had had a second armorer. One of them will say, if only Dave Halls had checked better. If only the camera hadn't been right there and Ms. Hutchins wasn't leaning over the camera. If only I myself did this. If only Alec did that. This is natural, their testimony. It's part of the human condition. It's part of grief.
Objection, Your Honor.
None of them knew.
Yes.
Now, what do you all think of these objections? Because I saw somebody in chat say the objections are making the state look bad. I'm not sure what they're objecting to. There are issues with both the state and the defense. But I think it's one of the issues here is he can't say, well, just because other people felt responsible, that means that Alec isn't.
As I was saying, the witnesses in their grief will look for reasons to try to make sense of this tragedy. But again, none of them knew or should have known about the lethal bullet either. No one had any idea that it was on that set or in that gun. In that world, they were all in it together. And you will hear that none of this other stuff has anything to do with those two critical questions we started with. Why there was a live bullet on set, why the armorer placed it in the gun, and of course, why the head of safety failed to detect it. None of it speaks to whether Alec knew or should have known those things. He didn't. No one on that set did. It was not foreseeable. You will hear that word from the witnesses and from eventually the instructions. Foreseeable. This was anything other than foreseeable. And they must prove beyond any and all reasonable doubt that this was foreseeable. Total indifference to human life, that death might occur. He's an actor. He's an actor. But here we are at a homicide trial. And so they will pull witnesses, and witnesses will be cross-examined. They will push themselves to the edge of truth and beyond. These things about, Alec didn't notice this or Alec didn't notice that. I want to make sure that you're clear on something that the evidence will show. He had been filming on that set for a handful of days. The evidence will show he had just gotten there. It's not as if he had been there for months and months and noticed things and failed things, and he had just gotten there. You don't notice every little thing when you start at a new place and when you're in the character of Harlan Rust. But they will push forward, and they will have gaps in the evidence as well. Don't expect you to be hearing and for them to call the first AD head of safety. I don't know if you'll be hearing from the lead detective, Cannell, who investigated this case, the lead detective, or the sergeant that supervised him, Sergeant Zook. I don't think you'll hear from Mr. Schilling, who was the lead investigator for the prosecutors. And so as you hear this, you jurors can assess about that gap of evidence. And there's one thing that I can tell you will not hear also. You will not hear from an actor or an expert in acting. And so they will play the videotapes of Alec Baldwin, the actor, acting. They will show you perhaps over and over again him in shooting scenes. Bad Alec shooting a gun the wrong way in a movie scene. They will try to get you to picture that and forget that this was a movie set in the first place. And you will see actors in a Western acting. And your mind might go to your favorite gun scene in your favorite movie. You may picture actors and actresses doing exactly what you see here. The other actors in Rust are doing the same thing that Mr. Baldwin was doing. But when you come back from that moment, remember, this is a homicide trial. And you will see soon that the reason they play those videos of him over and over is because they don't have any evidence of actual homicide. And you will learn the truth. Not a day goes by when we don't wish Alec had saved her life. But never, the witnesses will tell you, in the history, is something that an actor has done. Intercepted a live bullet from a prop gun. No actor in history. No one could have imagined or expected an actor to do that. So just remember that truth. So when they cry out justice, justice is truth. This was an unspeakable tragedy. Alec Baldwin committed no crime. Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you. What we're going to do now is we're going to take our morning bathroom break. So please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. And follow what Mr. Bing tells you to do. And we'll see you back here about 20 of. All right, thank you.
All rise for the jury.
Okay, everybody. So those were opening statements. We are done. A lot to unpack there. I have my own personal feelings and opinions about these openings. So I'm going to go through a couple of super chats while we are headed to, on our break. First from Charlie Harris, who thinks that the prosecutor put too much emphasis on Reed and not enough on Baldwin's recklessness. Now remember, these are opening statements. This is just an introduction for the jury to understand the state's theory of the case and the defense theory of the case. And Baldwin's recklessness is something that they will show through numerous witnesses. The state has discussed calling specific witnesses whom I've made notes about, and a lot of these witnesses were on set. They observed what happened. Interestingly, Hannah Gutierrez Reed has been called to testify for the defense, not for the state. Larry and I were both a little surprised. We thought that they might be cutting her a deal, but as it turns out, it seems that she is going to be a defense witness. So just remember, again, and also another thing, something that really strikes me with the defense opening is just this very important piece of knowledge, which is that the opening statement is not evidence. Opening statements are not evidence. They are a theory. They are, a perspective. It is not direct evidence. We have another super chat from Scott M, who says, if a chef poisons someone's food and they die, do you blame the server that handed them the dish? No. He says it was the armorer's fault, not the actor. Well, that's what we're trying to prove, basically. I mean, that's what defense is going to definitely be arguing, that it is the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who was responsible. One of the biggest things that came up on Monday when I attended for the pretrial motions was this producer theory. They are not allowed to use the producer theory. The state is not allowed to claim that because Alec Baldwin was a producer, that makes him responsible. So he is only being held responsible in his role of actor. And I'm telling you, this opening statement written by the defense, that this was, they either wrote two separate opening statements before and after this, or they edited what they were going to say significantly, because they are definitely relying on his status as an actor, as an innocent little actor who didn't do anything he wasn't supposed to do, who followed all of the SAG guidelines, which I significantly disagree with, because I was a member of SAG. I actually used to do commercials when I was a kid. And so I have some acting experience myself. I haven't really shared that with you guys before, but it's true. And even though I was never on a set where there were weapons, I know the rules and I know how all the protocol goes. Now, one of the things I'm going to go through, we have a couple of interesting chats and comments from you all. And I want to hear what you guys have to say. I'm going to be interacting with your, with your chats, but I want to make something very clear. Something about the defense opening statement that really doesn't sit right with me. First of all, is the way that he says that ask any actor will know that actors are not supposed to check the guns. That's not their job. While I agree that it is the armorer's job, actors should check guns. And the reason that he says that, the thing that really strikes me, that I think is a really significant thread that you can pull in the defense attorney's argument, is he's talking about how this never happens. This has never happened. Do you want to know why it never happens? He's talking about how on all of these movie sets, over decades and decades of history, Hollywood film history, accidents like this are rare. We can count on one hand. We can look at The Crow with Brandon Lee. That was an on-set death. We can look at Midnight Cowboy. That was another on-set death. And then we can look at the Twilight Zone movie. That was an additional on-set death. I cannot think of very many others. You want to know why? Because the guidelines and the laws and the rules and the regulations on movie sets are extremely stringent and extremely tight. I think that there were numerous people who were responsible for Helena Hutchins' death. And I do think that Alec Baldwin was one of them. And I do not think that you can say just because he was in the capacity of actor and relying on other people's assessment of this weapon, that you can completely obfuscate the issue. And even though I do see some issues with the way that the state has presented things, and I don't think the state is perfect, I agree with them. So Trevor Hemingway says, as an actor, I don't think he's culpable. if it was declared a cold gun by experts. The real issue is they weren't experts and got hired through nepotism, referring to Hannah Gutierrez Reed. The producer, Alec, is the one that should hear. Now, I don't know precisely what that last part of the sentence means, but obviously this is what the defense is trying to argue. I think that there are substantial problems with that argument. So let me see. We have another super chat. Thank you so much, Ray, for $20 for super chatting and saying there is not a single person on a jury who is going to buy that opening statement if they have any real world experience with a firearm. So I think that what defense is going to try to do is they're going to try to say, well, this is Hollywood. Hollywood is different. You know, in Hollywood, people don't really know about guns. They're just actors. They're not liable. The fact of the matter is, just because it was a movie set doesn't mean that it wasn't happening in the real world. Halyna Hutchins' death wasn't some sad, tragic ending of a film. She didn't get to sit in the audience and watch her own death and then stand up while everybody applauded her. She really died. So I think one of the most poetic aspects of this case that is really fascinating is the blurred lines between film and reality. And the thing is that we might all look at movies and get lost in the world of a film. But when actors are on a movie set, they are still very much in the real world. They are still very much subject to rules, regulations, and laws. So what I'm going to tell you about my experience as an actor, I was a kid actor. I acted from ages 6 to 11. And when you are an actor, you are subject to very stringent rules, regulations, and laws. And it's done that way because a lot of laws were broken very early on in the film industry. There were a lot of lawsuits. The way that the union SAG-AFTRA formed, it's the Screen Actors Guild, and then AFTRA is it used to be only connected to production. So Screen Actors Guild was like for commercials, and then AFTRA is more for for film productions. They merged in, I believe, 2009. I could be wrong about that. But the fact of the matter is that accidents like this are not common and they don't happen because there are strict rules and regulations. We know that, I mean, it's really unfortunate. The producer theory, in my opinion, I'm really concerned and bothered that this is not allowed in. I want to see the state prove this in a different way. But the fact is that Alec Baldwin did absolutely have responsibility as a producer with hiring, with skirting around the rules. And I'm struggling here because I know that there are things that are not going to come into evidence based on what I observed on Monday in the motions in limine, the motions that were denied, but that I think are, even though they are prejudicial, I think that they speak tremendously to Baldwin's character. So, for example, one of the things that came up on Monday with the motions in limine, it had to do with the fact that 2 years after this film occurred, and I'm telling you this, please be aware, the jury doesn't know this, so they're not going to be able to consider this. 2 years after the filming of Rust, Alec Baldwin worked on another movie set in Montana. And allegedly, according to the state, he wanted to do away with safety regulations on that set as well. Now, the defense argued that this was improper, this was propensity evidence, and it did end up violating Rule 403, which means that it went against his character and it didn't have anything to do with this incident. The state tried to argue subsequent bad acts, but unfortunately they couldn't get it in. You look at this man and you see somebody who is incredibly entitled, somebody who believes that he should not have to follow rules or regulations. And the death of Halyna Hutchins was not enough for him to straighten up and follow safety rules and regulations on this subsequent movie set. Now, the defense argued there weren't any guns on that set, so it shouldn't matter. This isn't relevant. And I do agree that it goes against his character and against Rule 403. So I understand why this isn't allowed, but I hope that the state is going to be able to represent to the jury that Alec Baldwin did act with wanton, reckless disregard for the safety of people on that set. So I can tell you a little more about that. I wanted also to mention Sharon Ken Sharp. Thank you so much for becoming a new member. And I really appreciate everybody for being here. We have a very large audience. I'm really glad that you all decided to join us. So Larry has been messaging me. They're on their break now. They're going to be coming back into the courtroom. I'm looking forward to seeing how this all unfolds today. This is a very exciting day. There were some other chats from individuals, and I'm going to be looking through the chat right now, but I'm looking at all of my started StreamYard chats. A question from Neat Scholar who asks, was Alec only in charge on paper, or did he actually have input on how things went down? Depending on that, the judge may have made a wrong call. So Alec, as a producer, he did have input into hiring, location. They chose New Mexico specifically because they could avoid certain taxes. They chose that set in particular because outside of the state of California, there are different rules and regulations. There were a lot of things that he was in charge of. So you have producers in name only. So like when you guys watch a movie, you see the executive producer credit. Oftentimes that's just somebody who threw money at the film and said, take my money and make the film. There weren't any other communications with that person. Alec Baldwin was a producer in multiple different ways, but he not only contributed significantly large amounts of money towards this production, but he also had a say in hiring. He had a say in all of the, he had a huge say in the weapon that they used. There are a lot of ways that he is involved and connected with how everything went wrong. And I think that that's important. I think that that's significant. I'm very disappointed they can't use the producer theory. And I do think that the judge might have made a wrong call, but I understand why she made it. I think I read this one from Trevor Hemingway, and thank you all so much for your super chats and your regular chats. I appreciate them. Santiago Garcia Jr. says, wrong opening when many New Mexicans know the rules of firearms. And that's an interesting point. I think that this jury is savvy, and based on the questions that I observed yesterday, it seems that many of them understand this rule that, if you're holding a weapon, you always treat it like it's loaded. That's simple. A 5-year-old knows this. Anybody, I don't know anything about guns. I have never fired a gun in my life, except I actually fired a BB gun on a movie set. That was the only time that I have ever touched any kind of weapon in my life. And even I know that you treat every gun as if it's loaded. It is simple and it's easy. And Alec Baldwin, with 40 experiences on film sets, should know, absolutely, unequivocally. He should understand very clearly that just because you are not required to check the weapon does not mean that, oh, it's fine. I'll just take the gun. I'll just do whatever. No. The way that SAG-AFTRA rules, the way are put together, and the way that film sets exist, everything is under a microscope. You have to do everything diligently. You have to be careful about every single detail. And where safety is concerned, you open yourself up to lawsuits. You open yourself up to liability and litigation. And that is something that every single person on a movie set knows, which is why you do training. It's why you do absolutely everything in your power. You don't do the bare minimum. You don't just say, okay, well, they told me it was a cold gun. And there was this culture on set where I understand, they were shooting guns off in the desert. They were plinking. They were, shooting like clay pigeons and cans and things like that. And for I might get a couple of details wrong here and there, but I've been paying attention to this case for a long time. So I take tremendous issue with the way that defense is trying to skirt his responsibility and say that just because he was an actor, he was just following orders. He was so much more than an actor. When you're just an actor and you're not a producer, you don't have as much seniority. You don't have the ability to make decisions about the way that the film is put together. But when you are a producer and an actor, you are one of the most senior people on that set. Your decisions are the most significant and substantial. People will defer to you as an authority figure because your money is making this film. So I'm just like kind of trying to breathe and take all of this in, because I see that what the defense is going to try to do is they're going to try and paint this as though he had no culpability and it was an accident because there were other people who were responsible. I think there were a lot of mistakes and a lot of poor choices that were deliberately made by Alec Baldwin, specifically as a producer, that led to this accident. So What can they do without the producer theory? I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing it. But I know that they're going to be calling certain witnesses. Again, sorry for my squeaky chair. It's a very, very squeaky chair. Let me see here. I'm looking. Okay, so two of the set safety experts that they're going to call in this case are Brian Carpenter and Kent Jorgensen. And I know that one of these individuals, I believe it's Mr. Carpenter, had worked for IATSE, which is a theatrical union. I know I wrote it down in my notes here. Oh no, it was Paul Jordan. So there was a man named Paul Jordan who was not present, sorry, for the incident. No, that's the wrong guy. My apologies. I have a lot of notes here that I haven't really fully gone through, but I took a ton of notes the first day during the motions in limine because I got a lot of information. I think what the defense is going to do, essentially, is they're going to pull up a lot of stuff from the crew. The crew does not feel that Alec Baldwin was responsible for Helena Hutchins' death. And the safety regulations and concerns appear to not be consequential or important. There was a crew letter that was written by Therese Davis. About 24 to 25 crew members signed it, but only 2 of the people who signed that letter were actually present for the incident. And the remaining, there were hundreds of people on that set. I believe there were about 110 people who actually witnessed the shooting, and only 2 people signed this letter saying, we don't think that Alec was responsible. I find that really substantial and significant. Now let's see here. I'm not sure exactly how long our break was supposed to be. I wasn't fully paying attention because I wanted to get to the super chats, and I wanted to kind of go through all of this. I guess I'm just going to ask you all, everybody in chat right now, what do you think so far? What do you think of opening statements? How do you feel about what's been presented? Have any of you changed your minds about any of the details or the facts? Are you reserving judgment? What are you looking forward to hearing about? And Michael Carter points out that Jorgensen is no longer an expert. He is just a material witness. That's correct. He's going to be a fact witness. I believe it was Jorgensen who's a member of IATSE, possibly. There was one particular witness who was not, I guess they wanted to call on his experience as a producer, and that was important, but they ruled against him as an expert witness, stating that because he had never been a producer before, that his testimony was irrelevant. But the thing is that this was somebody who had worked for OSHA. I believe this is Jorgensen, and he had a lot of experience with workplace safety regulations and concerns. He was also an IATSE member, which is the theatrical union. And he spoke specifically, I believe, in the, what was it? The grand jury to Alec Baldwin's culpability, the mistakes that were made on set. And I also want to go through and see if our good friend DUI guy has tweeted anything of import. So let's see, opinions about what's going on so far, what we've heard just now with opening statements. Cat Weasel Gaming says, the defense and prosecution contradict. The prosecution says they checked the gun and have seen 3 bullets, but missed the live round. And the defense says it was a cold gun. Yeah, that is very confusing. Casey says, I'm disappointed that Baldwin's producer role isn't allowed in because it does matter, in my humble opinion. I agree. I'm thinking that there are going to be certain issues that'll come up, especially with Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, because the defense is definitely going to argue, we got the person responsible. It was her. This is a young woman she was, I believe, 24 when this accident occurred. She was, between 24 and 26 years old, according to my recollection. And although I didn't watch the Gutierrez-Reed trial, I felt very strongly that she was being used as a scapegoat, because she was not the only person who should have been in charge of the weaponry. She was hired and her behavior was observed. Apparently every single person on that set, according to what I heard in the pretrial motions, was concerned about her lack of experience and her wanton and reckless disregard for safety, except for Alec Baldwin. And he was a producer, and he was responsible for her being there. He could have fired her, and he chose not to. There were a lot of issues with safety on the set, with members of the crew not getting enough sleep. They did not do their due diligence. And I know it's very tricky because you have all of these different people who have made these choices, and it culminates in the death of this woman and the injury of Joel Souza. So the question really is, how culpable is Alec Baldwin? Is it just the fact that he pulled the trigger? I mean, to me, if it had been another actor who had pulled the trigger, I still think that he should be on trial as a producer. That's my very strong opinion. Accidents like this don't happen. They don't happen because you follow the rules, because you are careful, because you want to make sure that nothing bad happens, because when there are weapons, you treat it very seriously. And the fact that so many people on set were in this land of make-believe, and that they did not check things, led to numerous individuals walking out over safety concerns, the camera crew, before this accident occurred. Apparently that wasn't enough. Well, let's see. Michael Carter thinks that the prosecution is demonstrating their lack of confidence in their case with the objections during the defense opening. It isn't a good look. If it wasn't a good argument, then why try to stop it 3 times? I believe that all 3 objections had to do with the motions in limine. I'm actually going to check my phone. I asked Larry specifically why all of the objections were occurring. He says, I have no clue, to throw Spyro off his game, to interrupt his flow. I don't believe that was Spyro who was, unless I'm wrong, I thought that Spyro was the man with the shaved head, the bald individual defense attorney. I could be wrong. And Larry's also asking whether we can order a seat cushion on Instacart, which I think might be a good idea. I don't know if this is to take with him into the courtroom or if it's for this seat for streaming, but I think we both need cushions at this point. So in any case, let's see what Larry has been tweeting. I'm going to go through his tweets. Oh, and we have another super chat from Andrew. Thank you for joining us for $9.99. Just joined. Can I get a TLDR on what's happened today? So we have gone through opening statements from the state and the defense. We just finished, and we are on a break. And essentially, the state's theory of the case and what they are going to argue is that Alec Baldwin, as an actor, behaved consistently on the set of Rust with reckless disregard for the safety of the individuals around him, and that he continually made numerous choices over and over again that went against, that sort of defied the safety expectations on any set, and that this all contributed to Helena Hutchins' death, that there were a lot of warning signs, red flags, and that he did not pay close enough attention to those red flags, that he was reckless, and that he was negligent, and that led to this tragic accident occurring. The defense theory of the case during their opening essentially comes from the place that he was an actor. He was just doing what he was told to do. He was told that the gun was cold, and therefore he relied on that information. They showed clips from the filming and they were trying to demonstrate that nobody on set was scared. He kept drawing. They asked him to do takes numerous times, and that they were not concerned about the weapon. And essentially that Alec Baldwin, obviously did not mean to cause her death, that there were problems with the gun, that the gun had malfunctioned. And he also brings up something that I think is going to be very difficult for the state to overcome, which is that the FBI destroyed the weapon, and that we don't have it to observe now in evidence. All right, looks like court's coming back. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate our excellent audience, and please like this video. Please subscribe to the DUI Guy Plus, and stay tuned and watch out for Larry's tweets. Larry is in the courtroom. Looks like we're having a little sidebar here. So I think any kind of evidence on Baldwin's side may change my mind. I'm very open to changing my mind. It would be a tremendous burden to overcome, though. So I do apologize, you guys. I know I'm biased. I know how I have my opinion about this case, and I'm perfectly willing to listen to other people's opinions. Clearly, a lot of you in chat don't feel that Alec is responsible. I see that people are coming at this from both sides, and I'm going to try and be as impartial as possible while I'm streaming and while Larry is in court. So I will be open-minded. It's just going to be difficult for me. So bear with me while if you want to make your best arguments for his lack of culpability, if you want to change my mind, if you personally in chat want to say something that might, make me think differently, you are absolutely welcome. I will consider any and all viewpoints. But I'm stubborn and I'm kind of a tough cookie. So just letting you know. We are about to come back. I think if there's a lag, and Larry is tweeting about something happening in the courtroom right now. So I'm going to read Larry's impressions while we're waiting so far. He says he thinks the prosecution had a good, strong, succinct argument. It's easy to understand and not complicated. The defense, on the other hand, droned on and on about Alec didn't commit a crime, that he followed the proper guidelines, and both Larry and the jury thinks got lost on his theme. I agree. He says it did not appear very succinct nor strong, and he's not sure that placing the blame on someone else, the armorer, the director, the prosecution not doing their job, is going to be enough to overcome the simplicity of the act that Baldwin committed. He failed to check the gun for live bullets and fired it at a person. Larry says it's still not an easy case by any means, and the defense does have a shot. But even though the burden is on the prosecution to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, Larry believes that the burden is equally heavy on the defense to show that Alec is not culpable in any way criminally. He goes on to say that he thinks that this trial will allow him a chance to prove that even though he's a defense attorney, he doesn't always swing for the defense or the defendant in all criminal cases. Alec Baldwin is a prime example. He's rooting for the prosecution at this time. That may change, but he still personally believes that they have the stronger case. Alec may still win, nevertheless. Jacqueline Guzman is saying, we see Larry. I guess I missed that while I was reading his tweet. I don't know. Where is he sitting? I'm seeing various members of the media. You have your little yellow press badges there. And that lovely woman in the third row, that is Sumiko from NBC, and she was generous enough to give me an extra notebook that she had so that I could take notes on the first day. So thank you, Sumiko. Big shout out to you. I see Stephen Baldwin. Looks like Hilaria right next to him. So Nails and Braids by Kim says, I could see if he's the one who loaded it, then charge him, but he didn't, so that's the difference. That is certainly a salient point, but I'm not sure if that goes to culpability. Unfortunately, I really wish that we could find out who was the individual who brought the live round onto set. I think that that's more important than who loaded the gun. This is a very long sidebar. And just so you know, we are not muted. We are live. We have audio on. So we are just waiting for this sidebar to conclude. All right, you all are saying that Larry is in the back row. On which side? On the state side or on the defense side? We have a chat from Blasty Pow Pow who is saying, we will probably never know how the live bullets got onto the set. That's unfortunate. And Zurenard says, that set was such a mess. We don't even know if someone touched the gun between the hands of Hannah and Alec. There are a lot of things that we don't know. I'm really looking forward to observing the testimony in this case, because this is one case that, I have not read the probable cause affidavit. There were a lot of pieces of information that I was missing coming into this. And so even though there are things I know about it, there are a lot of things that I don't know. So I assume, like many of you, we will all be sort of catching up with some of the information here. I'm looking forward to seeing, witnesses on both sides. But I think the state is going to put on a strong case. From everything that I heard on Monday, the witnesses that they intend to call appear to have knowledge and expertise, even if they're not expert witnesses. I think that we are going to get a good picture of what the set was like and what problems arose and what led to this incident occurring. I'm curious, for all of you who are waiting with me while we're doing our very long sidebar here, have any of you watched the Hannah Gutierrez Reed trial? Because I did not watch it. I only really watched the, I believe it was either the sentencing or just the very, very end of that. If anybody wants to contribute, if you watch that trial, what your opinion is about Alec's guilt or innocence and how you think this case is going to go. I'm very curious. I think we get to start now. All right, a number of you are saying you saw it. Dolores Hamilton says, I watched the entire trial. He's guilty. Interesting. Oh, good. And a lot of you actually did watch the Hannah Gutierrez Reed trial. Excellent. So many people think that Hannah was very guilty, that she was very responsible, that she came across as though she didn't care. Christina says, we still believe Alec is innocent. Interesting. I like seeing a mix of opinions in this because it's really boring when everybody has the same opinion, when they all think the same way. You all challenge me, especially when you bring up points that I would not have thought of. I think I'm really biased just because I'm familiar with the industry and because I understand, the rarity and the severity, and also just like the environment of responsibility that a set has, the way you are supposed to be culpable for your behavior. So I'm biased because I can't help it. But I don't know, I might see the defense put on a very strong case. I'm not really very encouraged by opening statements, but it all depends on the quality of their witnesses. It depends on their ability to cross-examine in the state's case. So we'll see as the state puts on their case, how up to the task defense really is. I'm not sure if if Baldwin can hire a defense team that can sufficiently protect him from some of the very obvious problems here. So apparently right now, the jury is still not in the room. According to Larry, he says that the first witness for the prosecution is Nicholas LaFleur with the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office. I remember them discussing Mr. LaFleur, and I believe he was one of the lead investigators. I'm not sure. Probably a lead investigator on the case. That's my guess. If the state's putting on a case like this, the lead investigator should be the first witness. Ms. Holmes, 66, saying that Hannah is the one person who is guilty. Yes, she's young, and she was the lowest bid for the job, and she was hired. Why hire professionals if you have to do their job as well as your own? That's fair. I think that's very reasonable. Did the crew walk off due to firearm safety? Asks JCS. That's not entirely clear. There were safety concerns that the cameraman, staged a walkout over. But I do not know specifically if it was because of firearms or not. I believe we will hear that during the state's case. Big Day says, I think Alec should have been held responsible as a producer with the other producers as the set was unsafe. But since that's not on the table, I think he is not guilty as the gun was pulled. Now that is one thing I can attest to. There are not other producers that were charged in this case, so that was something the defense spoke to, and I can see where that makes sense. All right, looks like the jury's coming in. My chair sounds like it also wants to state its opinion. I'm going to be muting my mic so that that's not too much of an issue. I'm very much looking forward to this first witness. All right, we are about to start.
Call your first witness.
State calls Nicholas LaFleur. Sir, please,
Raise your right hand. You swear affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, have a seat. Talk into the microphone. Sure. Rules and votes.
I'm sorry? With regard to the invocation of the rule, our case agent is in the room. We just wanted to put that on the record.
The prosecutor indicated that they'd be calling the case agent early in the case. So given that, I did not continue my objection I had earlier to her being present. Thank you.
Case agents allowed in.
Sir, state your name and spell your last name for the court record, please.
My name is Nicholas LaFleur. My last name is spelled Lefleur.
And how are you currently employed?
The City of Santa Fe Police Department.
And what do you do there?
Police officer.
How long have you been employed at the city of Santa Fe?
2 years.
Can everyone hear Officer LaFleur? Okay. And prior to working for the Santa Fe Police Department, did you work anywhere else?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you work?
Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department.
And how long did you work at the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department?
About 2 years.
And were you on duty on October 21st of 2021?
Yes.
Did you receive a dispatch call?
Yes.
Can you tell us what you received and what you did?
A call came in that there was someone shot at a movie set. Unclear who shot, how many were shot. I happened to be the closest person to the call and arrived on scene first.
So when you arrived on scene, when you say first, were there other law enforcement officers there?
No, not at the time when I got there.
Were there any other first responders present?
There was some fire personnel and what they called a scene medic for the movie set, I guess.
You said a scene medic?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you, let me ask you, when you receive a call for a shooting, what's your primary concern?
Priority life.
And what do you
And to
mean when
make
you say priority life?
Make sure whoever needs help gets help and that the threat is stopped.
And when you arrived on the scene, and where was it?
Bonanza Creek movie set, I guess. It's quite a ways off the interstate.
Okay. And what county and state is that in?
Santa Fe County, state of New Mexico.
Okay. So when you arrived there, give us an idea of what you saw. What was going on?
It was a big, old, like cowboy western themed, like city or a town. There's a bunch of people running everywhere, bunch of cars, bunch of people pointing. When I got there, people were pointing towards a church, and I got out and I attempted to grab my medical bag and went in and saw.
Hang on, I'm gonna stop you there. Approximately how many people were there on scene?
I don't have the direct number, but there was more than 100 people.
Have you ever been called to a shooting where there were 100 people already on scene?
No.
Did that present any specific challenges for you?
Yes.
Explain to us what those challenges were.
Just there's a lot of moving parts. Just got to take it one piece at a time. See who's hurt. Make sure that that nobody's continually getting hurt, and then two, the person who's hurt, medical attention is being given to them, and then go from there.
Okay. And when you arrived on scene that day, were you running your body-worn camera?
Yes.
The state moves for the admission of State's Exhibit 4.
No further objections, Your Honor.
Am I? I want to just make sure I'm connected. I'm ready to play it. Permission to publish?
Was you going to recognize it first, or are you satisfied with the foundation?
Yes, Your Honor. We've consented to both lapel videos
Right,
today.
that's fine. Okay. So you may publish. This is States 1.
I have to say, I really like that we are able to
How do I
see
get the
what the
monitors
jury
to
is
come on?
seeing.
Ryan's going to do it.
Okay.
That wasn't really happening in cases like Depp or Murdaugh, and so I'm glad that we get the
Yeah,
opportunity
I do.
to witness what they're witnessing. The visuals are very helpful.
All right.
Looks like the meds are here at the gate. Tell them that I'll stop and tell that they can apologize.
Hold on, his monitor's not on. Are your monitors on? Yes.
This one's not.
We'll turn it on.
It's on, but it's green light.
Green light's on.
Let me go get the adapter.
Well, can he redo it from here while he's looking? Or do you want?
Sure, if the monitor won't just come on.
He's got to get the adapter. Go get the adapter.
Okay. Officer LaFleur, do you want to turn around and just look at the monitor on the wall behind you?
It doesn't matter, man.
Okay, let's do that.
You got your trauma kit? Yeah, I'm trying to get it out. Stupid new truck. Are we inside with the BBMs?
Officer LaFleur, tell us what's going on in the video right now.
I'm looking for my other medic bag. I handed the individual a trauma pack for shooting, and I'm attempting to open one of the storage boxes in the back of the truck.
Who was the individual that you handed something to?
I believe it was a fire personnel that I followed in, a volunteer firefighter maybe.
And I thought I heard the word, is it BVM?
It's for CPR. It's a bag valve mask.
Valve mask.
BVM.
Okay, thank you.
Where you at?
A seal. You have a seal?
A seal?
Seal.
I got a sterile glove and a packing glove.
Okay.
Right here.
Over there? It's over there? Yep. Yeah. My hand is on it. We're gonna get you up.
Who she shot at?
She came in here and went across her chest. And came
Okay.
back and went into the...
You want air flight?
Yeah, we all went in route.
Okay.
And what are you talking about there when you say air flight?
Helicopter that's designed to transport people that need advanced treatment faster than an ambulance. It's a helicopter that air paramedics basically.
Did you call for the helicopter or did someone else do that? Do you know?
That individual said that they had already called one, but I called one for one as well.
You called also?
Yes, ma'am.
And why did you feel that it was necessary to have a helicopter arrive?
Someone who was shot across the chest. We're quite a ways out for an ambulance in reference to where the hospital is. So.
And when you say you were quite a ways out, how far away is Bonanza Creek?
From a hospital?
Sure.
Running lights and sirens, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or more.
Okay.
.32 Santa Fe, one female shot in the chest, male shot in the stomach, requesting air flight.
Request air flight.
I heard you there say male shot in the stomach. Is that what you said?
I'm not sure. I didn't really hear it.
Well, as you sit here today, do you recall where the other person was shot?
Somewhere in the chest
Okay,
or shoulder area.
thank you.
GPS? GPS forward.
It's okay.
I got you right here.
2432, how many people you have up there?
32, I got just Santa Fe medics.
In your video, sir, can you identify who the set medic is?
It's a little blurry, but I believe it's this lady, right? The one that's bent over with their blondish brown hair.
Is the monitor working now?
Yeah. Yes.
Come on, Joe.
This monitor is working now.
Oh, it is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you know how to touch it to put it? There you go. Thank you. I appreciate you. You can go ahead and remove that.
Oh, I don't know how to remove it.
Can you show them how to remove it?
Oh, push on the menu button. Clear. And then there's a clear digit.
Okay.
And if it's in the way, just push menu.
Do you know who these other people are that are in the room?
No, I know that that person, and somebody over here, the battalion chief, they were wearing Santa Fe county fire medic shirts. So, and they came in the vehicle in front of me.
You don't know who the other people are that are in the room?
I know the other person shot, and then Elena Hutchins, or I maybe misspelled her name or pronounced it, and then the other assistant director, and that's about it.
Okay. And you mentioned that there was a truck pulling in ahead of you.
It was a volunteer firefighter truck.
So did the first responders that we see here in this scene, did they arrive about the same time you did?
Yes.
32 Santa Fe, both approximately 140 pounds, elderly male and young female. What do you need me? No. You want a BBM?
He's good. He's got broken shoulder.
This is repeat your information. Flying her out. Yeah, she'll be fine.
All right.
Officer LaFleur, tell us what you're doing now and why.
I looked over it and seen that they were getting the oxygen tank out. Noticed that they were using on a bag valve mask, which was more appropriate for that situation than the one that goes around their face. I'm just helping them, doing as much as I can to help.
So give us a little bit more information. What causes you to believe that the bag valve mask is more appropriate than the one that goes around your face? And when you say the one that goes around your face, what do you mean?
If the oxygen were to run out or they had to use manual breaths, they could use the bag. The other one is just something that's over their face.
Okay. And what made you think that the bag valve mask was more appropriate?
Nothing really. I just believe that's more, I don't know.
Officer LaFleur, are you trained in life-saving measures?
To an extent, yes.
Okay. Was it anything about your training that caused you to think that that would be more appropriate?
It's just what we've been trained with versus the one that was already on her.
Okay.
Gabby, can you just make sure nobody else comes in?
Yeah, we got air.
Do you have ears, ma'am? Do you have stethoscope? Yes, they're in that bag.
Hang in there.
Right there at the top.
Hang in there.
Purple? Nope, at the top. Helena.
Is anybody allowed to go with her in the helicopter? No.
Helena, deep breath. Deep breath, Helena. There you go. Deep breath, Helena. Deep breath.
Be okay. Good girl. Okay.
There you go. Good girl. Deep breath. You're doing okay. Entrance is here. Exit's back here.
Okay. You guys,
Do you have another?
pack it?
No.
What do you guys need?
I just need another dog tag.
Dog tag?
Something for pressure. I'll take a big one.
This one?
No, this one's good.
This one?
No.
This one?
Pad, you have an pad.
Underneath the right shoulder blade, the top area coming through.
All right, thank you. I just need something big. Thank you.
You got a stretcher?
Not me here, no.
Okay. Let me help him get the stretcher. Stretcher.
What are you doing now?
Just trying to stay busy, help clear the way for the stretcher. The ambulance is here.
Here's priority number one. Okay.
Let's start clearing all this stuff out of here. Get everything in here and get it out. All right, yeah, we got air flight en route.
Not on me here. We can get it from the Helena?
This is Helena Hutchinson. Okay. So I got the air. Thank you. Did you get all that out? I'm not behind you guys. All right, so we're gonna need to get her going right with the rocket.
Officer LaFleur, have additional first responders now arrived?
Yes.
Can you give us an idea of who's on set assisting now?
So it looks like more paramedics have arrived, and Lieutenant Benavides is right there.
Okay, and do you mean this gentleman here?
Yes, ma'am.
That my cursor's on? And who was Lieutenant Benavides?
He was our day shift lieutenant at the time.
Was he a supervisor?
Yes, ma'am. We got a through and through on her. We went through and through on her, through the chest, and then you got one in the arm over there.
Everybody stop what they're doing right now. This is a crime scene. Okay, everybody stop.
Whose voice is that we're hearing?
Lieutenant Benavides.
Okay, roll it back. Roll over to the other side. One, two, three. Right underneath, pull. Really good. I'll strap it down, let it go back. All right, I'm gonna take good care of you here, okay? You keep your eyes on me, keep looking at me. All right, we got some stairs, guys. Go stairs on the first step.
So what is your understanding about where Ms. Hutchins is being taken now?
Into the back of the ambulance.
And can you explain why is she going into the back of an ambulance rather than the helicopter?
The helicopter hasn't arrived yet, and my understanding is that they have additional medicines and equipment and measures they can take inside of an ambulance.
All right, thank you.
Disconnect here. You got it?
Hey, take over that.
You guys want to see Vincent? 32 Santa Fe. What's ETA on the bird?
What did you just say?
I asked them ETA in the helicopter.
And who are you speaking to?
Santa Fe dispatch.
Do you recall how they responded?
It's been a minute since I watched this video, so.
All right.
Oh, we got the bird right here.
Is the helicopter now arriving?
Yes, ma'am.
What are you doing now?
Appears I'm grabbing crime scene tape.
Why are you grabbing crime scene tape?
To start the crime scene. I don't know if anybody had told me to grab the tape yet, but I knew we needed to start one. So.
You felt that you needed to put up crime scene tape.
Yes, ma'am. Or somebody may have asked for it.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Or somebody may have asked me for it. I'm just not too sure.
Cordoning off the crime scene, was that an issue here?
Yeah, it was a unique situation because of the you can't really tie crime scene tape to nothing. So I think in one point they actually used our patrol units as to tie the tape around and go to the next one.
And why is it important to cordon that off?
Just for evidence purposes, allow only certain people in and out, because at this point we didn't know what was going on. So.
And were there people in that area that were not first responders?
Yes.
Approximately how many, if you recall?
I don't know. I couldn't give you a number really. There was just a lot of people on the outside that I hadn't seen originally inside the church. So.
Okay, and did you know who those people were?
No.
Okay. Do you see this person here in the gray shirt?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that a first responder?
No.
So when the crime scene tape goes up, what happens to that person?
I can't recall.
Well,
I haven't watched the video yet.
Hypothetically, is that person allowed to stay inside the crime scene?
No.
Okay. Who are the people that are allowed to stay inside the tape?
Medical and for first responders.
Okay.
We need Chief. I'm radio in for my
This is in the middle of a shot, and I have live ordnance on the ceiling up there. It's safe.
Okay.
But it is here, right above here.
Okay.
Right there. That's
okay.
And if you get to the point where you say you want me to move,
all right.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Where's the bird?
It's right here. Okay.
Yeah, poor thing.
What are you doing now?
I talked with the paramedics inside the ambulance, and they asked me where the helicopter was. I told him it was landing, and he asked them to bring the paramedics to them.
So you're bringing the paramedic from the helicopter to the ambulance?
Yes.
All right.
We got approximately 23-year-old female in the back of the ambulance right now. Gunshot underneath the right arm. Went through all the way to the back left. Can you carry this back, please, sir? I got it. You got it? This one's priority. Breathing on their own.
I got a good respiratory rate. So, teachers would be helpful.
Guys, just get a couple IDs. They're not sure whether they're IOs or not.
Here, grab the IO stuff.
Can you open your eyes for me? Yep, there. Yeah, I'll have to work on the IO and then come around. That's it. If I could just have you guys just step over there for us, okay? Can I have you guys get over there for us? We're going to have to gather everybody up, get everybody's names, everybody who's on scene, okay?
What are you doing now?
Just trying to think what's next. I think I'm putting one of the pilot's headgear inside the ambulance on the other side of the door.
Why are you telling those people to move?
Just to start to gather people up because they're just standing around the church where the said incident happened.
Why didn't you do that when you initially got there?
Just went in and made sure that medical that people were receiving medical treatment, and then slowly go with the flow, see what it could do next.
Are you trained to take action to save lives before moving witnesses around?
Yes, ma'am.
How's it going, sir? I believe you guys will be taking this one.
The bird then? Did she go in the bird?
No, not yet. They did IVs, getting IO, and then they're going to take in the bird.
They're coming out like it's out.
They're moving it from this one?
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of them still.
Is that your stuff?
And whose jacket is that?
Joel's.
Joel's? Okay.
It's got his phone. And his careful, it is bloody.
Okay.
It's got his phone. It's got his other stuff in it.
Okay, well, we're going to just keep it here. So, he was
his phone?
Officer LaFleur, this woman who's speaking right now, she's not a police officer, right?
No.
Was she employed with the fire department?
No, she was their set medic, I'm guessing.
When you say set medic, do you mean she's the medic on the movie set?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, he was wearing it. Well, where's his phone at?
I don't know.
Do you have any idea why movie sets would have medical personnel on scene?
Probably for safety reasons. Someone closer than the paramedics or fire department.
For safety reasons?
Yeah.
Phone.
Anybody have Joel's phone? Yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
Yeah, how can we help you?
I just need your IDs, and then have you guys step outside and wait for the investigators to get here. Okay? Okay, cool.
Any idea who these guys are?
Just more people involved with the movie set.
Movie set employees?
Yeah.
Is that your impression?
Yes, ma'am.
And who's the props guy? Who's in charge of props?
She has green and purple hair. You can't miss her.
Okay.
I was here when it happened.
You were here when it happened?
Yes,
Who else was here when it happened?
The camera operator. It's in his pocket.
How many people you think were in here when it happened?
3, maybe 4.
4?
Maybe.
Okay. So 2 more other than you 2?
Reed, as soon as I see him, he was the camera operator. Reed, yes, sir.
Okay, who else?
Reed Russell was here. Alec Baldwin was the actor on set that pulled the trigger.
Alec Baldwin?
Yes, sir.
Where's he at?
We got one.
Yeah, you help me find him?
Yes, sir. Baldwin's right there on the cell phone with the cowboy.
Okay. How's it going, sir? So my understanding, you were in the room when someone was shot?
Holding the gun, yeah.
Okay, alrighty.
What do you need?
Well, I know your name, so JC.
Pursuant to the stipulation, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead.
Very good.
I want to make sure this is the right part. Okay.
Let me get with my lieutenant and see where we want you to hang out. Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
Yes, sir. All right. Give me just a second. LT. So
So apparently I was not given the appropriate reaction. You want me to jump ahead 5 seconds now? What? I need to know what to do, or I just press play. What do I do?
Oh, this could be a problem. It seems like the video needed a redaction and it was not redacted. I think the prosecutor's trying to avoid exposing information that should not be exposed. That'll usually happen in police body cam footage. Somebody
You want to pull the trigger? Do you want me to have him sit tight or?
Yeah, you're gonna have to sit tight.
Sit tight in the unit.
I have the armor in here. This is all their stuff. I have the gun used is in there.
And I got the two people that were in the room.
Okay.
You want me to have Alec Baldwin take a seat in the back of my unit or?
No, we know where he's at. We know who he is.
Yeah.
We just need to say, is he in a trailer?
No, he's right there in the gray and black.
Okay. All right. So try to keep him away from everybody.
Okay.
Have him talk to anybody.
Okay. I can just have him sit. I can sit with him in my unit. That's fine. Okay. Okay.
Officer LaFleur, at this point in time, what's your intention?
I was going to go back to where Mr. Baldwin was and then escort him to my unit. When I got there, I realized my unit is over here being used as a post for the crime scene.
So what did you do when you realized that?
Just had him sit where he was and had everybody just hang out there. Started writing down people's names.
Okay.
Ready to shoot. You want to do straps. Yeah. Earplugs. Everything.
All right.
What are these people doing?
Seems like they're talking about what happened.
Now, as a law enforcement officer, is that something that concerns you?
Yes.
And why? Why does that concern you?
They could be, one person could be telling them what they saw and mess up what they have to say, what they saw. So it could essentially coerce testimony, I guess. People would say the same thing because the other person said it rather than saying their own opinion or own view of what they saw.
Mr. Baldwin, who's the director on scene?
The guy that was shot.
The guy that was shot?
He's in
okay.
Where is he now? I think he's in the ambulance.
Do you guys have a production car? Or?
There's an AD. Name is Dave. I'm waiting for you right now. I'm happy to stay right here and do everything it is.
Well, my lieutenant just wants you to stay away from everybody and not to talk to nobody. So I was
wait right here.
We can wait right here and have everybody step back, or we can wait in the back of a patrol unit, but I prefer to not put you there, okay?
You want something? You want water or something now? I want to find props to get a cigarette.
So why did you let Mr. Baldwin sit there instead of putting him in some vehicle and separating him from the other witnesses?
Like I said, my unit was clear across being used as a post, and just because I didn't know what we had right there, came to maintain cooperation with people involved.
Well, it sounds like you gave him an option. You let him choose. Is that right?
Yeah, he wanted to stay right there, and figured if I could keep him there, I didn't see a big problem with it until later on when people were talking and whatnot.
And did you give Mr. Baldwin instructions about whether or not he could speak to people?
I did tell him to stop talking.
And did you give instructions to the other witnesses that were around?
I didn't tell them, but I told them he had to sit there and not talk to nobody.
Okay.
I got it. They're going, what do you got? That medium? Marble medium? Take it.
So you don't want us to go
Hands
up?
are shaking. Straight Yes, sir. I'm right there. The silver car is Alec's vehicle. If you want to put him in there. Mr. Baldwin, is that your car? Yeah. We can wait in there.
You want me to stay here?
We can wait in your car if you want to.
I can't smoke in the car.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, we can wait. Hang out right here then.
Is Joe gone? Are they both gone?
Yeah. Well, they're still working on the female. If you haven't seen the helicopter take off, then they're not gone yet.
If you know, Officer LaFleur, why hadn't the helicopter taken off yet?
I don't know exactly why, but my guess is they have to stabilize the patient before they can put him in the air.
In the air, okay.
Inquiring with the where you
Why are you just standing there?
Just standing with Mr. Baldwin, allowing him to smoke a cigarette, making
And
sure.
why is it important for you to be standing there?
Essentially, he's detained, not free to leave. So I'm there with him.
So 3710 interrupt, but that's free. Myself there, 65, 65,
Luke's here right there. He took his radio off, but that's our first AV.
That one right there?
Talking to you.
Right here.
Down in front of that sheriff's car with the gray hair kind of in the
Okay.
shirt.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, you're an officer over here by now. Great.
Why do you have these two gentlemen standing over there that we can see? What is there something important about them?
The guy in the gray I had him stand over there because he was inside the room when I first got at the church. And the other guy in the brown apparently was in the church too. So I just wanted everybody who was in the church in one area so we could easily be found.
So you wanted everyone that was in the church in one area.
Yes, ma'am.
And are we looking at that area?
To the left of Baldwin is where majority of everybody was. Yes.
Okay. And those were the witnesses that were in the church?
From what I was told, yes.
Okay.
So, Mr. Baldwin, how many people were in the room when it happened?
I don't remember. It's a crew.
It's a crew?
A dozen people, but a lot of the crews outside, inside that building. He'll tell you.
Okay.
He's the one that knows what was going on. He's asking how many people were in the room at the time.
How's it going, sir? Deputy LaFleur. How many people were in the room at the time?
Dozen.
Six?
7.
Officer LaFleur, who's this gentleman who's speaking now in the blue jean shirt?
From what I was told, he was on one of the other directors.
6 or 7? I need a definite answer.
I don't know.
Okay. So I got 1 here, the 2 that were injured, that makes 3, and then these 2 gentlemen, 4, 5. So who would be the other 2? Yeah, he's got Ross. More than 6?
Supervisor, I keep track of the narrative and how many square. I can tell you who's in the room.
Okay. Were you in the room?
I was at the door.
You were at the door? Can I get your ID?
Do you know whether or not the person in the jean shirt was inside the church and witnessed the incident?
I do not know.
Okay, why don't you come on over to the back of
T to T4. I have 380s for requests. Just really just down everybody was screaming. Well, he was inside.
Does it appear to you that Mr. Baldwin is speaking to the other witnesses?
I think he was talking about who would know who's in the room.
Okay.
I can't really hear it. And then apparently the guy's son was working there as well.
Okay. Is this an ideal way to separate someone from witnesses?
After looking at it, probably not, but that's what happened.
Okay, understood.
You're right at the door? Do you have an ID on you, sir? As of right now, her status is questionable. That's why we called the air light. Like, where were you at, sir?
I was right behind him.
Right behind him? Okay.
Yeah, I was right behind him right when it happened.
All right. So just have you guys hang out for me right here. We'll get someone to get your statement in just a second, okay?
And then they cleared the gun outside after on his request, and I witnessed them clear it and saw the bullets.
Okay.
So the one was, they were all
The one that was missing, the one that fired, we don't know, but all the other ones were proper.
They had loads.
Officer LaFleur, does it seem to you right now that they're talking about the incident?
Seems like they're talking about the gun that was used in the incident.
All right.
They were low flames.
They had loads. They didn't know. They were supposed to do their shake test before they put the gun lower.
Officer, do you know what this conversation is about that we're watching right here?
Something about a shake test. I don't know. Maybe the rounds, dummy rounds, maybe.
Okay.
I'm not too entirely sure.
Do you agree with me that, well, was Mr. Baldwin supposed to be talking about the incident?
No, ma'am.
Does he appear to be doing it anyway?
Yes, ma'am.
After the rehearsal, you give me the empty gun. And they don't use it to be in the low. It's not until we're ready to shoot. So we can hear plugs in. You all right? I'm worried about her. Yeah, well, me as well, but what's your situation? She's stable now. You get her in the air. Hit in the shoulder. Hit her where both of them took it in the shoulder. Hers came out the other shoulder, which is why it's not good. His, the shoulder blade stopped it. So shattered. There's basically a rotting. It's a blank. But because I think it was based on the sound of how much ringing I had, I think it was a half.
Officer, are they still talking about the incident?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a reason that you didn't stop them since you told them not to?
I think as time goes on, I tell them to stop.
Okay.
but who knows what else is in the room. My other hand.
You were in the room?
Effects crew.
Okay. Can you get your ID, sir?
That's what I said. I think there was more than 6 or 7 guys. I think it was about 8.
You see this gentleman over here on the left?
Yes, ma'am.
Any reason to believe he was inside the room at the time?
I'm not sure at this point.
Okay.
Were you in the room too, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay.
She was breathing. She had a clear lungs. And that needs to be for me. But he potentially has got air in his right. It's not stuck here.
Where did he take them?
He took it to the right shoulder. His right shoulder blade stopped it, but they're hearing stuff in his right. It's,
And where did she went after that?
Did they take it as he got? As soon as they were allowed to. So they'll stabilize both. And then once the sheriff says you're good to go, they'll let them go.
And she's going to you.
So she basically they're trying to stabilize her vital signs enough for the flight.
Sure.
And administer any kind of narcotics or anything they need, blood thinners, that may be. Then they'll load her up in the helicopter and they'll fly her there. I believe the other ambulance is on the other side, and he seems to be doing better than she was, so
Absolutely.
they might drive him in an ambulance.
Okay. I heard him wave off the other friend, so.
And where did they take her? She went out and took her, right?
Both of them took it in the shoulder.
When I was up in Joel, I didn't see nothing on him before they took me out.
He just went over.
Yeah,
I ran out.
I came back in the cubes and I was helping him. I didn't see nothing. I was asking if he was all right. He couldn't hear me.
You and him at the trauma hospital.
Still at St. Vincent's. They're both trauma ones. So.
Thanks for the information. I was curious.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna step away and call my wife.
Yeah, no problem.
I got more out.
Get him out of my life. There's nobody in this life. He walked around. I want to get him. He's got to put it down there. I don't want to see him.
Officer LaFleur, have more first responders now arrived?
Off to your right, you can see. There it is. Off to your right, you can see more patrol units showing up. This deputy showed up, but this corporal had been there for a minute.
And approximately how long have you now been on scene?
According to my body cam, a little over 25 minutes.
Okay.
Hey, Corporal. I got 7 people there in the room when it happened, all their IDs. So.
Okay. Get it all brought down. I'm not sure what you came out for.
It's okay.
At that point in time, what was your understanding of how many people were in the room and witnessed it?
I believe I said 7.
Okay. Do you know whether or not that turned out to be true?
I think there was actually more. I wrote all the people who said that they were in the room in my report.
Okay.
Hey, sir. And I'm just hanging out with him because he's the one who pulled the triggers.
Okay. Yeah, he tried it. Sorry, I was trying to set things up a while ago. And
Whatever you can. What are you smoking? You got one on you?
You got a notepad? Ready? All right. Do you have a notepad?
Officer LaFleur, at this point in time, I know he's no longer in the frame, but the gentleman in the blue denim shirt, do you know whether or not he was in the room at the time?
I don't recall if he was in the room or not.
Okay.
I know there was some director or whatnot there.
Okay.
I don't have mine either. Yeah. So I start. Yeah, I know. It came off when I was given, trying to pack wounds. Yeah. Okay.
Officer LaFleur, does it look like Mr. Baldwin is speaking to a potential witness?
He just looks like he's talking to the guy who says his name is one of the directors. Yes.
Okay. Is that what you had in mind when you asked Mr. Baldwin not to speak to anyone?
No,
Do you know what they're talking about?
I couldn't hear what they were talking about. I did hear him ask him what cigarettes he was smoking and if he could have one. So.
Definitely has a bunch of loose cards in there.
Oh, geez. All right.
Or do you want me to tear some pages off?
No, because I'm going to be writing quite a bit. Everybody's in the room. I mean, I have my phone on me. Yeah. It's all right. I'll just, yeah, all right now.
Do you see the gentleman in the denim shirt gesturing? You want me to back it up?
Yeah, which one? Are we talking about this gentleman?
Yeah. Do you know what he's gesturing?
No, it looks like he picks up his hand. Now that you play it back, it looks like he's shaking his hand.
And had you seen him do that previously?
No, not until just now.
I thought you testified earlier about a shake test.
The gentleman was talking about a shake test,
Okay.
but I had not seen the director do it until reviewing the footage now.
Okay.
My eyes aren't always exactly where the body cam's pointed, so.
Absolutely. When you tell people not to talk about the incident, do you have an expectation that they'll follow your instructions?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it look like they're following your instructions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Officer LaFleur, I'm going to stop the video there. What else did you do on scene that day?
I helped essentially just wait with other witnesses, I guess, or people that wanted to give a statement or they needed a statement from at a different location. It was their base camp is what they called it.
So you needed to take statements from people that were at another location? Is that what you said?
No, we took people from essentially where we had them, and they took them down to their base camp. And that's where they started interviews.
And the people that you take to base camp, are those the same people that we see here in the video?
I believe so. Those people, and I don't know how many people they ended up interviewing.
Did at any point in time, did Mr. Baldwin tell you that he didn't pull the trigger of the gun?
I believe he told me he was holding the gun. I believe in the beginning when I was leaving the church, one of the guys said that Baldwin had pulled the trigger. So just off of what was told.
And I know that this sounds ridiculous, but we have to follow some jurisdictional rules. Do you see Mr. Baldwin in this frame here?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you point him out, please? And do you see that same gentleman in the courtroom today?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you point him out, please?
He's sitting in the middle with the glasses.
Okay. Anything else that you did of import that you can think of that you think the jury should hear about?
I think that's about it.
How long were you on scene, if you recall?
From when I got there was, I don't know, about 10 hours maybe or so. I was there until dark.
You were there for 10 hours.
Yeah, until they were done interviewing people.
Is that typical?
It is if that's what they need to be done. So
Okay. Your Honor, just for the record, we would ask that the record reflect that Officer LaFleur has identified the defendant.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
All right, time for cross-examination.
May I proceed?
Sorry, Mr. Spiro.
Oh, sorry.
Get that out of your way.
Always fine when the court interrupts me. May I proceed?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. When you got to the scene, Mr. Baldwin walked up to you and said, I was holding a gun. He blurted it out, right?
yes,
And in fact, he was very shocked, if you could picture Alec Baldwin in a pale state, very unsure of himself. You could say an actor out of character. Fair?
sure.
Object to the former question. It is Mr. Spiro testifying in the question.
Oh, he's definitely testifying. That's definitely improper.
May we approach?
You would say an actor out of character, correct? Seriously? Come on, bro. I'm not impressed with this defense attorney. Now, I know that some people have problems with the state, with the prosecutor, and I can see that. She's got some, her personality leaves a little to be desired. I do think she's doing a better job, though, with her questioning. What do you all think? Let me know in the chat if you think this is improper and what you think of
Mr. Baldwin, he looked very shocked. If you could picture Mr. Baldwin in a pale state, like unsure of himself, you could say an actor out of character. Is that a fair description?
Sure.
And he said to you, I'm here, whatever you want to do, right?
Yes.
He said to you at one point, where should I go? Right?
Yes.
And he also pointed out to you who the director was on scene who was hit in the shoulder, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Relevance? Overruled.
So I want to take a step back. The dispatch that came over to your radio, sir, before you got to the scene was a dispatch for an accidental shooting by a prop gun, correct?
I believe that's what was told to me, yes.
Okay. And you've testified to that previously, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the dispatch report, you know that you received that wording, accidental discharge, several times, right?
I believe so.
Okay. So I want to ask you, how come when you described it today in court, how come you didn't include the word accident when you testified before this jury?
I'm not one to say if it was an accident or not. Just there to initially respond to it, and then the detectives determine whether or not it was an accident.
Well, sure, but every other time you've been asked about this, you've said it was an accident. And now today at the trial of Alec Baldwin, when you're talking to this jury, you left that word out. Isn't that true?
Not intentionally, no.
Did you meet with the prosecutors before you testified here today?
Just briefly in the room outside for them to tell me who was in order of what witness.
You've discussed your testimony previously with Ms. Morrissey, correct? Before today?
Just in a pretrial interview, yes.
We've talked about your lapel that was on. It's true, right, that the lapel is actually mandatory.
Yes.
Right? And so they came to the officers, passed a law, and told you had to wear your lapel, right?
Yes.
And the way it works is it secures all of these statements, and when you're done wearing it for the day, you go back to the station, you log it in, and then it exists, right?
Essentially, yeah, but it's more complex than that. It uploads on itself.
Oh, it self-uploads so that it maintains itself?
Yes.
Okay. And you then talked a little bit about the securing of the scene, and you talked about crime scene tape going up, right?
Yes.
But as you just told this jury, at the time, you don't know whether this is an accident or not, right?
Yes.
It's not like a crime scene tape is some evidence of a crime, right?
Whether it was an accident or a crime scene is still essential.
And you've been very candid that you made some mistakes at the scene, right?
Yes.
And that you've learned since then about some of these mistakes, right?
Yes.
You've said hindsight's 20/20, right?
Yes.
And you can Monday morning quarterback decisions, but you made them in the field, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you've said that based on your training and experience, you know that if witnesses are left to speak to each other, they can taint each other's memories, right?
Yes.
And sometimes that's incidental and accidental, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it's purposeful, right?
Depends on who's there, yes.
Well, if you were with somebody and somebody was talking to you about the 911 call, right? And they kept saying to you over and over, it wasn't an accident, it wasn't an accident. And then you testify and you leave out the word accident. That could be an example of taint, couldn't it?
Sure.
And also non-witnesses can taint people's memories too. You agree with me?
I guess.
Well, at one point in your testimony previously, you had said that there was a lawyer on the scene that was talking to some of the people that were on the scene.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. And if that lawyer told somebody on the scene, I think your understanding is that could have tainted their view or their memory, right?
Essentially, yes.
Mr. Baldwin never asked to speak to that lawyer, did he?
I'm not to my recollection.
And then you went on and you said, that you had told Mr. Baldwin not to speak to the other witnesses. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes.
And I think you were asked approximately 5 times why Mr. Baldwin was disobeying your orders. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes.
Okay. But in the lapel video that we just saw, you're not going up to Mr. Baldwin or these witnesses, but get out of here. Get out of here. I'm an officer. You got to separate. You don't do that, right?
Nope.
And also in that video, you can see a lot of these people are coming over to Mr. Baldwin, right?
Yes.
One of them comes over and shakes his hand, right?
Yes.
Have you ever seen that in all of your experience? Somebody commit a homicide and everybody and all the witnesses are on the scene, circling around the person, shaking his hand and talking to him about what happened. Have you ever seen that in your entire career?
No.
And then you went on to say, well, you didn't put him in the cruiser. You didn't put him in the cruiser Because your cruiser was being used was I guess the reason that you gave. Was that, did I understand that right?
My patrol unit was being actively used as a post on the other side of the field for crime scene.
When you say a post, do you mean like it goes somewhere else and you put the tape around it? Is that?
The side mirror was wrapped around with crime scene tape.
Uh-huh. I mean, there were also another dozen officers on the scene that day that had police cars if they wanted to put Mr. Baldwin in at any point, right?
Yep.
Okay. And in fact, Mr. Baldwin later on drives himself to the precinct and goes and speaks to the police, right?
I'm not too sure how he got there, but he did get there.
Well, he wasn't under arrest, right?
Not to my knowledge, no.
And so you use this word detained. When Ms. Morrissey asked you, well, were you detaining Mr. Baldwin? Do you remember that question?
Yes.
Isn't it true that even today, years later, no police officer has ever arrested Mr. Baldwin or detained him in a police car? True?
I don't know.
The police department, the Santa Fe Police Department, has never arrested Mr. Baldwin.
Not the
Object
Santa Fe
to the
Police
form of
Department.
question, asked and answered.
And one of the things that you do as an officer on the scene is you observe demeanor, right?
Yes.
And you spent 10 hours on the scene, I think I heard you say, right?
Yes.
You got to see the people of Rust that day live, right?
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is that you took it as a way how everybody was acting, and that the individual who claimed to have been holding the firearm was still there, that there was no, the way he was, his demeanor was that there wasn't any intention behind the act, as you could say. Isn't that true?
I wouldn't say there was no intention. I don't know the individual's intentions, but his demeanor was sad, upset.
Okay, well, it's not just his demeanor being sad and upset, right? Okay, I'm gonna move that to the side. And I understand you're not a mind reader, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. All you can do is look at the people and look at how they're interacting and make your own judgments, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you do that as a police officer to try to figure out how to interact with a scene. True?
Yes.
Okay, and isn't it true that the way you took it, how everybody was acting, and that the individual who claimed to have been holding the firearm was still there, that there was no, the way he was, his demeanor was that there wasn't any intention behind the act, as you could say. Isn't that true?
Again, the wording you're using, I wouldn't say I
Okay.
had any clue of whose intention was what, but he was sad and upset.
Okay, well, let's play. I'm going to play his statement to that effect. Can you cue that up, please? If that's okay with the court. He's saying he didn't say that he did. I'm going to impeach him. Well, you want me to clarify that? Yeah. Okay. Are you claiming that you didn't say that?
Rephrase what you said?
Sure. Dispatch said it was an accidental shooting by a prop gun. So I didn't know if there was any. I took it as the way how everybody was acting, and that the individual who claimed to have been holding the firearm was still there, that there was no, the way he was, his demeanor was that there wasn't any intention behind the act, as you could say, you know.
Again, I wouldn't say I knew what his intention was.
I understand that. What I'm asking you now, okay, is did you in fact say those words that I just asked you?
At what time? The Gutierrez or PTI?
Yes.
I may have.
Okay. You don't deny saying that?
No.
Sure. One more time, I'm just going to ask you, did you say that statement that I read?
If you're reading a statement and it says my name next to it, then I more likely said it. I just don't recall when.
And one of the other things that happened that day that I don't think we've talked about is you spoke to a witness who told you that a woman named Sarah was crying and shaking and going through the bullets and saying, I don't know how it got in there.
Objection, hearsay.
I'm asking the witness if he had that information.
But he's making the statement, the hearsay statement is coming in.
Do you know whether anybody at the scene was, before you got there, shaking and going through the bullets and saying, I don't know how it got in there?
I don't know.
Okay. If we could refresh the witness with his lapel, and I would ask that can I put it up on just his screen? Okay.
I don't think you can do that.
I would object because that's not proper refreshment. We don't refresh in front of the jurors. That's my objection.
What do you mean?
Well, if we're refreshing.
You know what? We're going to take a lunch break real quick, and we're going to be back at 1 o'clock, okay? Please don't talk among yourselves.
Well, all right. Looks like we have lunch break. There is just tweeted they are officially out for lunch. Okay.
All right, you're excused. You can move over. And this thing is a battery and council approach.
All right, so we are going to be back in 1 hour at 1 p.m. to resume the cross-examination of this current witness, the first state's witness, Officer Nicholas LaFleur of the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office. Looks like there are some things to go over at sidebar here over the break. And Larry, I believe, is on his way walking back to the hotel. We're going to have lunch, and then we will be resuming. So I'm going to end this stream. We will come back at 1 p.m. and we will have our afternoon stream. So unless there's anything else from the judge, looks like everybody's filing out. I am very much looking forward to hearing from Larry what his thoughts and opinions are. I wanted to check his tweets and see everything that he's saying, but I'm going to be talking to him in person and asking him for his opinions, basically, of what's going on. We ordered him a seat cushion so that he can be comfortable sitting for a very long period of time. And we're going to have lunch. We're going to get back to you. And I will be resuming the following stream in 1 hour. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. Oh, wait. Here I am. So I am, again, Chandler Remington. I am streaming for Larry while he's in the courtroom. And we'll be back for the afternoon session. So please look forward to that. It'll be a new stream, and I'll see you all later.